Okay, we will call to order the Oak Island Town Council regular meeting of March 10th, 2015. The council will enter into its invocation led by Councilor Medlin, and then we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the warm weather finally. It's been such a relief. Thank you for this beautiful place, wonderful place that we live on Oak Island. Help us to never take it for granted. Thank you for these people that sit here at this desk who give of their time tirelessly to try to help run the town the way it should be and make the right decisions. And we pray tonight as we deal with the business at hand that you would give us wisdom, that we would make good decisions, that we would keep our focus, that why we're here is for the betterment of the town, to do what's best for the people in this town. And we would never come before you without remembering those who are in harm's way tonight, who are protecting us, who are giving up their lives for our freedom. Lord, we pray that you protect them, guide them, be their source of strength, meet their needs. Help us to never forget them, and help us to never forget the freedom we have. Thank you again for this time. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Medlin.
Nicely done, sir. Nicely done.
First on the agenda tonight is a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on proposed amendments to Division H, Section 18222, Division 13, Section 18335, and Division 2, Section 18413 to require neighborhood meetings for major subdivisions or land use changes. First to speak to sign up is Helen Cashwell. Please, when you come to the podium, please state your name and your address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Helen Cashwell, 3407 East Yacht. Words, they're really, really important. So tonight, I want you to listen. The public hearing tonight actually encompasses two actions. They should not be combined. The first one is approving amendments that have been copied from the Brunswick County UDO, and then subsequently approving a neighborhood meeting based on that amendment. Last council meeting, Councilman Weinkauf announced he wanted 2 public hearings on every matter before this council. So tonight, we not only have 2 proposals combined in one, but we have scheduled 1 public hearing. Now, how consistent is that? Does council's words have any meaning, or they just spoke to fill up space? But I find the most incredible thing is that we've copied a Brunswick County UDO guiding this proposal. Now, to me, that's like my not paying my income tax in North Carolina, because I'm really from Texas and we don't have income tax. So I'm not going to pay it, but I'm going to go lobby the North Carolina legislature and tell them pass a bill now so I don't have to pay it. I also think it's really interesting when it comes to the subject matter of neighborhood meetings. I ask you, why bother? I don't remember a CAMA permit being turned down because of neighborhood complaints, unless it goes before the Board of Adjustments, and that is a last resort with the citizens going to court simply because of the expense. Remember the 15-bedroom house? That came down not because of any action by this council, but because of a lawsuit and the economic ability for that to be challenged in court. It's very disheartening when so much energy is spent by so many citizens to try to keep a place affordable and environmentally safe the way they would like it to be, and then watch the ordinances that are blatantly not enforced put on the laws of the town despite what the citizens want. As one of my great friends said, let the caboodle dance go on.
Thank you, Ms. Cashwell. Next is Ken Rogers.
Mitigation is about the most misunderstood problem that's going on in this island.
Ken, if you don't mind, state your name and address for the record.
Ken Rogers, 6901 East Beach Drive.
Thank you.
Mitigation is ignored, the laws are abused, and I'm going to read them out to you because I've researched them. Mitigation of wetlands is very expensive. Private developers can buy credits from the North Carolina Wetlands Restoration Program. The fees for mitigation are $100 and $125 a foot for stream restoration, $1,200 an acre wetlands restoration, $125,000 an acre for tidal mitigation costs. Now, my question is, when they mitigate land on Oak Island, who monitors it? And who monitors the monitors? I just see them swap land for land, and they keep building on wetland, and it's totally against the law. Now, Heather Coates of Cameron reported there was wetlands on by the 69th Street Bridge where a road is proposed. Now, this is her report, not mine. She also in her report said that all development must be off the bridge. Now, no roads for private development can be built through wetlands, which the bridges are. I have the statement here. On the 67th Street house, they filled in wetlands totally. Now, I heard the other day they can only fill in 2 feet for floodplain land, and there's at least 3 to 4 feet have been filled there. I do not understand why we keep abusing the wetlands. I have never asked for anything myself, only for my children, my grandchildren, and your children and grandchildren, and I just fail to understand why this keeps happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. That's all that have signed up to speak at the public hearing. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak, please? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
I move to close the public hearing.
Have a motion. Do we have a second by, please? Motion by Councilor Painter.
Second.
Second by Councilor Weinkoff. All those in favor, please. Okay. Chair will entertain action on the public hearing, or no action? Does anyone want to make a motion to take any action on this public hearing?
Madam Mayor, the only thing I will say is that when we had this big discussion, and we brought it up in our workshop, that there would be any kind of big event or anything that happened on the island, there would be 2 public hearings, 1 each month. This was the first one this month. There should be another one in case people want to come next month to speak on it. We heard so many times that nobody got to come speak at any public hearing when something big on this island happened. So we put this in place in case something got built in a neighborhood, something that was going on that you had need to put your input on. There was enough public hearings where you could come. If you missed the first one, you could come to the second one. That's why this whole thing played out the way it did, to make sure everybody in this town has a voice and they can voice their opinion. 1 public hearing, if you're out of town and you can't make it, at least you got another month where you can voice your opinion. And so that's why this month was the first one. Next month, we'll have the same public hearing. Anybody wants to voice their opinion about anything that goes on in this proposed housing development or neighborhood that's getting ready to be built, it'll be the time to voice your opinion. We're opening the doors for everybody to have a voice, and then you need to utilize.
May I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
If council is, with council consensus, make a motion to reopen the public hearing, and then continue the public hearing at the regular meeting of April.
Yes, ma'am.
At the second part of the public hearing, okay?
Gives a second.
So,
Mayor,
please,
I'd like to ask a question before we do that.
please.
Was this public hearing publicized? Before it was publicized?
As far as I know it was. Kathleen, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah.
If not, we can't have it.
Well, I mean,
I'm
that's my
sure it was-
point.
I'm
That's
sure it
my
was
point
advertised.
exactly. And I'm reading from page 7. The neighborhood meeting is an opportunity for an applicant to inform the community on the proposed project and hear comments. At these meetings, the community has an opportunity to review the proposal and may offer suggestions. Community suggestions are not binding, but the meeting can result in a better final project. it appears to me that there apparently is not a lot of concern out there about this, or there'd be more people here to talk about it.
Well, I agree with that, but there could be, like I said, somebody out of town. We've heard so many complaints, nobody got to voice their opinion, and I just think when we had the workshop and I made the motion, no, there's something big going on in the town, there should be 2 public hearings for them to voice their opinion. I'm not gonna go back on it. If somebody's not here this meeting, they might be able to make it next meeting. If somebody has something to say, I'd like to hear it. That's just all I'm saying.
Well, I'm good with that. I was just making a point.
I don't see the harm in it.
Yeah. Some good can come out of it if we can get the word out that all those people that have been voicing concerns about the particular project that brought this up have an opportunity next month when you get up to speak. So would you like to make a motion to reopen the public hearing, please?
Madam Mayor, I move to reopen the public hearing.
Motion by Counselor Painter,
Second.
second by Counselor Medlin. All those in favor? And we will, Mr. E, I guess we need a motion to continue the public hearing. Motion to continue the public,
Continue the public hearing until next month.
till the regular council meeting of
Regular
April.
council meeting in April.
Okay, have a motion by Counselor Weinkauf. Do I have a second? By Counselor Kaiser. He nods his head when he makes them say. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous.
Madam Mayor, I have to advertise as well.
Yes, and re-advertise the public hearing. Okay, we have council reports, and I'm gonna do it different this time. I'm gonna start in the middle and go out. Counselor Medlin, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wallace. As most of you know, tonight is Steve Foster's last night is with us as our town manager. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank him publicly. Myself, I know we're going to have a proclamation in a few minutes. But for myself, just to thank him publicly for the way he's performed his job. He's done a stellar job. He's accomplished a whole lot in just a little over 2 years. And he has performed his job through some very difficult times, and he's done it in a very professional manner. And I just wanted him to know how much we appreciate it. He has moved our town forward in a very positive way, and I know that we're going to continue that process. I just hope and pray that we can continue to move forward and do it in a positive way. And Steve, we wish you well in your retirement.
Thank you very much.
It's a good thing to retire. I can tell you that. And I hope you and your wife will enjoy traveling, or whatever you're going to do, or just tooling up and down the waterway in your boat. You're going to be free to do whatever you want to do. And we wish you health and happiness. And again, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right.
And I don't know if Steve knows it or not. We have something in a few minutes. Counselor Scott, please.
Hard act to follow. Thank you, Steve, for everything. The only thing I have is several months ago, I made a motion to have in our agenda the unencumbered amount of money that we have in our general fund, and I followed that up twice, and still I haven't seen it. And I'm wondering what we can do to make this happen. I think the public needs to see what monies we have, and I would certainly like to see it before I start writing some of these $1 million checks and different things. I'd like to know how much is in there. So can we do something to make that happen?
We can, and I mentioned it to Dave, and I think he's working on a format of some type to put that together. It's not just a matter of saying how much money we got left at the end of the month. It has to be a certain format that we're able to do it, because a lot of the time if you put something out there, it's misconstrued and it causes more harm than good. So, David, where are you at out there? You still working on getting that format together? You think you can have something by April, do you think? Okay, that'll be good. Thank you.
And they always have to keep in mind, during a fiscal year, there may be transfers that the council has approved that haven't been made yet on paper. So he'll have to make a note of all those, and he can't give you this fiscal year's unencumbered balance until the auditors give him the adjustments to be made on the general ledger for June of 2014. I think they finally got those to you? Okay.
So we did finally get an audit, so
Yeah.
we're moving in the right direction.
I signed it. Counselor Kaiser, please.
No comment.
Okay. Counselor Painter, please.
Okay, just real quickly, attended what was called a Green Growth Toolbox workshop the end of February, and I think it was the 28th. But and if you were interested to know what does that mean, green growth, it means conserving wildlife habitat and other valuable natural resources as communities continue to grow. This was put on at Brunswick Community College by the North Carolina Fish and Wildlife, whatever, group. And it was very interesting. Josh Crook, our own Josh Crook, having attended a similar workshop at a different location, asked that it be put on, and it was very well attended. We had another one of our development services staff there, as well as one of the planning board staff, and one of our consultants from Holland that is putting together our unified development ordinance was there, and it was all very interesting. So.
Good. I'm glad you were able to get to that. I had scheduling conflicts. And Josh, I want to do a shout out for Josh. I've been at probably a dozen of these types of workshops or seminars and meetings, and he's always at them. It's in Wilmington, it's in Brunswick County. Josh is always there. A lot of times Steve Edwards is with him. And then, Steve, our CAMA, Donna Coleman. I see her there a lot. So shout out to all of you for going to those some things. Councilor Wyckoff, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just a couple of things. One of them, I'd like to go along with Councilor Scott, what he said. A lot of times we're out about everywhere. I stay on the go personally myself. And it's nice to know when we're making decisions up here exactly how much money we got in the town. I mean, I feel lost in trying to make a decision not knowing that. The other thing is I find out a lot of stuff when I read Facebook. And I shouldn't have to get my information from Facebook. So I'd really like some information if something happens that comes to us so we're aware of it, so we're not reading it on Facebook, seeing what's going on. And the other thing is, got to go to another Warrior Ride that came into town. It's always a pleasure to see them out and about and make the long journeys they make and enjoy what they do. And my heart goes out for them. That's all I have.
Couple things for my mayor's report. I went to greet the wounded warriors. Thank you to Lee Hennett. He kept me updated on where they were when they'd be pulling in. It was their state-to-state ride, and they started down in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, and it ended up here at the VFW on Oak Island. And if you've never seen that, they've got their RV right now parked up there at the, I think it's Oak Island Realty, just across the street from Thomas Drugs. They modified bicycles so that wounded warriors that have lost limbs, eyesight, there's one of them that's blind that rides in it. He's got a rider that rides with him and tells him where to go. And they modify those, and they do all their airfare, they do all of their boarding expenses, everything. And they come and let them have a great time on those modified bicycles. They need our complete support, and kudos to them. Kudos to Bob Racine and all of his volunteers that do this for our wounded warriors. This past Sunday, our Parks and Rec director, Rebecca Squires, asked me if I'd like to go to Pinehurst. They had a 3-day Governor's Board of Tourism conference, and on Sunday afternoon, they announced the route of the 17th Cycle NC ride. It's a ride that they do every year. This one is the southern leg, and it goes from the mountains to the coast. They will start the September 26th in Waynesville, September 27th to Hendersonville, and then on September 29th, they'll be in Shelby, and they'll go to Concord on September 30th, and then October 1st, they go to Southern Pines, and then October 2nd, Lumberton to Whiteville, and in Whiteville on day 7, Saturday, October 3rd, They end at Oak Island. Yes, us. Go us. Rebecca worked, I mean, this is the governor's Board of Tourism. You can't buy this kind of advertising. There's going to be about 1,100 bicyclers. They're going to end their ride here, and our Parks and Rec department is working with them. Last year, they had the leg that ended at one of the other coastal towns, and they took them home on that Saturday, and they all fussed because they wanted to stay for the weekend at the beach. So this will be in October. We'll keep you posted on the progress of it. Rebecca put the little sign downstairs in the window of Town Hall. And it's also the same weekend as the U.S. Open. So I've told Reagan, the manager of this event, that they can expect a very, very warm welcome from everybody in Oak Island. When you see all of them, give them a hand. Riding a bicycle all the way from the coast, mountains to the coast. I don't think I could do that. Next, we have presentations, proclamations, and recognitions, and I have a couple that I want to do that are not on the agenda, so I'd like to do those first before we do the three that are here. Rebecca Squires. I neglected to tell her I was going to do this. You've been the Parks and Rec director for what, about a year now?
Yes, ma'am.
But you've worked with the Parks and Rec department for 12 years? Almost 12 years. Lisa and I did this. Resolution of appreciation for the Parks and Recreation Director, Rebecca Squires. Whereas Cycle NC has a mission of promoting physical fitness and health and providing economic impact and publicity to rural communities across the state while showcasing the state's beauty, scenic attractions, and cultural diversity, according to the Cycle NC website. And whereas since the inaugural Mountains to Coast ride in 1999, Cycle NC events have attracted participants from all 50 states and more than 8 countries, and seen riders travel more than 4,900 miles on the scenic back roads of the state through more than 600 North Carolina communities. And whereas the town of Oak Island was selected to serve as end host city for this year's Mountains to Coast ride, and whereas during the event this fall, approximately 1,100 riders will end their journey in Oak Island, and whereas many of those riders and their families will spend time at Oak Island once they get here, bringing tourists to the town after the end of the typical tourist season. And whereas Oak Island being chosen to participate highlights the efforts of Parks and Recreation Director Rebecca Squires to promote parks and recreation programs at home and across the state. And whereas this kind of advertising is valuable to the town and local businesses and cannot be purchased. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Oak Island appreciates the efforts of Parks and Recreation Director Rebecca Squires and her staff in promoting all that Oak Island has to offer in pursuing a healthy lifestyle and in bringing new visitors to the town. Adopted this the 10th day of March, 2015. Thank you. Dennis Mineri and J.C. Moss, are you here? Come here. I think we forgot to tell him.
No, he didn't know.
Yeah, we forgot to tell him?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay. I'm Dennis Mineri, and some of you may know J.C. Moss as he's the lead guitarist and coordinator of the Oak Island band, the Oak Island Boys. What many people don't know is that J.C. has been volunteering his time here for our community for about 14 years, serving on the Park and Recreation Board. He recently stepped down as the chairperson, though he will remain active. A little bit of history. J.C.'s wife, Margaret, I believe was out there, started visiting Oak Island in 1982, and as many people do here, he fell in love with the beach community and then moved here in 1998 from Mars Hill. J.C. was the athletic director, coached football, and taught physical education at Bunk Hill County Schools starting in 1966. And while doing that, got his master's going to Mars Hill College in Western Carolina University, where he got his master's in PE. J.C. joined the Parks and Rec Board not long after moving here in 2001. And before I ask the mayor to read the plaque and make the presentation, one shameless plug for J.C. He and the Oak Island Boys will be playing at the Rec Center this Friday. Okay.
They are good.
They're good.
I want to express a special thank you. Most of you, there's a lot of you in town who have seen J.C. do what I've seen him do. He not only serves with the Parks and Rec Board, but there are many people in town whose lives are better because J.C. goes and takes them to the Food Lion, or mows their grass, or helps them with that phone that's broken. He's just a phone call away. But thank you for all of your work to help the people that are less fortunate than you are. And the Parks and Rec Board had a plaque made. It says, "Above and beyond, J.C. Moss, in appreciation of your leadership and dedication as the Oak Island Parks and Recreation Advisory Board Chairman, 2004 to 2015. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Did I do something wrong?
Forgot to tell him too. I just pulled brain face. Have a knife. Uh-huh. So they can see. Resolution of appreciation, Town Manager Steve Foster, even though I'd like to smack him for leaving us. Whereas Town Manager Steve Foster is retiring from the town of Oak Island, having served the town faithfully since October 2012. And whereas this is the second time Mr. Foster has served his hometown community, as he was town manager for the town of Long Beach in the 1980s. And whereas as town manager for Oak Island, Mr. Foster has led the town through challenging financial times. And whereas rather than focusing solely on handling the day-to-day issues, Mr. Foster has been the kind of manager who constantly looks forward to the future to keep the town moving forward in a positive direction. And whereas thanks to his vision for the future and his tireless efforts in working with consultants and state and federal agencies, Mr. Foster has brought to fruition the much-needed dredging of the Eastern Channel, which also led to the first beach nourishment project within the town of Oak Island since 2001. And whereas Mr. Foster has earned the respect of his employees by being a firm yet fair manager, willing to make difficult decisions when necessary, but serving as an advocate for employees when needed. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Oak Island greatly appreciates the efforts of Steve Foster as town manager and wishes him all the best in the retirement he has more than earned. Adopted this the 10th day of March 2015, and it will be signed by myself and all of the council members.
I'm getting embarrassed.
Good job.
Steve, I'd like to let you know there's been, I think it's probably half a dozen employees now that have told me that they felt like they were being managed and with somebody that was professional and expected them to do their jobs, watched them as they did their jobs, and gave them the thanks when they did go above and beyond. So, and Tim, you got some big shoes to fill, honey. I know you're up to it. You can handle it. Okay, next is the proclamation for Arbor Day. We had this every year, and the council agreed to amend our ordinances in last December for our Tree City USA Advisory Board, and that got us the final, it's the highest award that you can get being a Tree City USA community, and I believe we've been a Tree City USA community for 12 years. Is that right, Chuck? Pardon? I think it's been about 12 years or more. 18 years. Go us. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And I'm not going to read this entire one. Whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. Whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. Whereas the town of Oak Island has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices, and whereas the town's Tree City USA group, along with the Oak Island Beautification Club, will celebrate Arbor Day on March 28th by giving away a variety of tree seedlings between 10 a.m. and noon, or while supplies last, in the Food Line parking lot, 5901 East Oak Island Drive. Now therefore, I, Betty W. Wallace, Mayor of the town of Oak Island, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim March 28, 2015 as Arbor Day in the town of Oak Island, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day, to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and to participate in the seedling giveaway during the town's Arbor Day celebration. And the last line didn't print in our agenda packets. I proclaim it, whatever it was. Proclaim this 10th day of March, 2015. And put that on your calendars, March 28th, at the Food Lion from 10 a.m. to noon. My bald cypress and my 2 live oaks that I got last year are thriving. They have some wonderful trees that they don't give away the trash trees. I mean, they have the wonderful, beautiful trees. Next is a proclamation on Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week. And as much as I'm tripping over my tongue this evening, I'm only going to say this once or twice. It's a hard word to say. Proclamation declaring March 2nd through the 8th, 2015 as Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week in the town of Oak Island. Whereas multiple sclerosis is a chronic and disabling disease of the central nervous system in which the progression, severity, and specific symptoms cannot be foreseen. And whereas every hour of every day someone new is diagnosed with MS, a disease that can erode a person's abilities and hopes, halt a career, and unravel the fabric of families. Whereas finding the cause and developing a method of prevention for multiple sclerosis are important tasks that all Americans and North Carolinians should support. Now, therefore, I, Betty W. Wallace, Mayor of the town of Oak Island, do hereby proclaim March 2nd through the 8th, 2015, as Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Week in Oak Island, and commend this observance to all our citizens. I further encourage all to participate in local efforts to combat MS. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the town of Oak Island to be affixed this, the 10th day of March, 2015. And I know this was later than March 2nd to the 8th. They didn't get this to us until after last month's meeting. I'd also like to recognize, if you check with the Elks Lodge, if you like riding the bicycles, the Oak Island Riders have bicycle rides. They have several a year that benefit multiple sclerosis victims. I don't know their exact contact information, but if you'll check with the Elks Lodge, they can get you in touch with them. And kudos, another Oak Island group that does these rides to benefit another issue that many people have, the multiple sclerosis. I'm proud of them. Next, we have a presentation by Wells Fargo with a refinancing proposal.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
this Dave Cheatwood with Wells Fargo Securities. He approached myself and our finance director, David Hatton, what was it, 2 weeks ago? And we've been in contact with him prior to that about a proposal that he's looking at to possibly helped save the town quite a bit of money on our sewer bonds. And I'm gonna let him, I'm not gonna go into much more detail than that. I don't wanna convolute anything, but,
Is he the one that emailed me and I forwarded it
that's
to
the
you and
one.
Dave? Good.
Yeah, and he
Good, I'm
followed
glad.
up with it.
Good.
Yeah. And, so he's got a pretty good proposal, and I wanted him to take a few minutes and show it to the board, kind of show what we're looking at. The basis of this, just as backdrop, as you know, we were looking at refunding these bonds in about 10 years, and we all know that's killing us on our sewer water rates and everything else that we're paying out on it, sewer district fees. But we didn't think we could do anything about it until then, but he's showing us a way that we might be able to do something well before that time,
Okay.
which will save us some interest and such. So go ahead.
Great. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here tonight. Steve said my name's David Cheatwood. I work in the Public Finance Investment Banking Group at Wells Fargo in Charlotte. And we work with cities, counties, towns on publicly issued bond deals for both new money borrowings as well as refinancings. And we regularly monitor issuers in the state, their outstanding debt, to see if there are any refinancing opportunities. And as Steve said, we saw the revenue bond issues by the town and brought those to his and Dave Hatton's awareness, and he wanted to follow up and have me present that to you all. And got a presentation here. What I'd like to do is give you a real brief overview on the current interest rate environment, which is the reason that's driving these savings or potential savings, and then talk to you a little bit about the refunding or refinancing process here and show you the punchline in terms of what we're seeing in terms of savings, debt service savings on those bonds. You'll see in the current interest rate environment, I've got a couple charts up there, and the chart on the left, the red line is the tax-exempt benchmark yield curve. It's called the AAA MMD yield curve, and that's basically where the best of the best, the state of North Carolina AAA bonds trade in the market, and that changes on a daily basis, but that is our benchmark tax-exempt yield, and that goes out from 1 to 30 years, much like the Treasury bond yield. And so you'll see where we are today is that solid red line, and then the blue shaded columns are where rates have been over the past 25 years. And so what that chart tells you is, we are at extremely low interest rates today. Not at the rock bottom, but slightly above where the all-time lows that we saw really in 2012, kind of in the fall of 2012 is when we hit those all-time lows. The chart on the right, the red line is again today's yield curve. The other dotted lines are the yield curves on the dates that you all issued your previous bonds in 2008, 2009, and 2011. So I think this is a good illustration to tell you where rates are today versus where rates were when you issued those bonds. And what we'll get into a little bit, it's much like a bond refinancing is very much like refinancing your mortgage. There's a couple nuances in ours, but rates were at a certain point when you issued them, they're lower today, and so therefore you have some potential savings to get. This gives you a little more condensed view of what rates have done over the last 2 years or so. This shows you the 30-year tax-exempt rate and then the 30-year Treasury bond rate, and those typically move in tandem. But what you'll see here is that, starting in 2014, we saw a steady decline in rates across the board, and really, that hit bottom here at the end of January, which is when we met with Steve and Dave. Since then, we've seen rates pick up a little bit. Some of that's due to the economic factors, jobs report, things like that, the economy improving, and various other, geopolitical factors drive that. But still very low rates and just kind of off the bottom of where they were back in January. So that's kind of the last two slides of where rates are today and where they have been. I guess in terms of where rates are going, it's anybody's guess, but when we're asked that, we turn to our economist. And so we've got a couple of different rates in here, and they tell a different story depending on where you're looking on the yield curve. If you're looking on the short end of the yield curve, where we are today, if you look in, we've got the actual for the past 2 years and then the forecast, you'll see a more accelerated rise in rates is anticipated, and that's driven off the Fed funds rate. A lot of the chatter today is when will the Fed raise that Fed funds rate, and that's the short-term rate. And so you see a more, the current projection is they'll raise it sometime in June or thereabout. And so you'll see a quicker rise in rates on the short end of the yield curve, call it 1 to 10 years. The story on the long end, the 10 to 30-year range, is that it's a more steady increase, but not as dramatic. So we see, for instance, they call it at the end of the first quarter in 2015, roughly 2.6% on the 30-year. Right now it's about 2.7%, but you'll see at the end of this year, they're only calling for rates just under 3% on the long end of the curve. So that says a slow and steady rise, nothing dramatic on the long end, a more accelerated rise on the short end. So that's the kind of projection of where rates are. In terms of the town's debt and our refunding analysis, the town has, we focused on the enterprise system revenue bonds, and the town has a little under $100 million of outstanding debt on the enterprise system, and about $86 million is what we call senior indebtedness, and that's made up of 3 series of revenue bonds, the 2008, 2009, and 2011 that were issued to fund the town sewer system. And so you've got that, and so how we've broken that out. Yes, ma'am.
Go back to that slide for just a moment, please. Interrupt for just a second. Everybody out here, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, everybody that talks about our high utility bills, pay attention right here. Total indebtedness still remains today of almost $98 million. That's why your rates are where they are. We have to pay this debt. And, okay, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood what you just said.
Yes, ma'am. And so what we've done here is focused on your senior indebtedness, which is that $86 million. Those are your publicly issued revenue bond deals. The subordinated indebtedness is a couple state revolving fund loans, but again, the bulk of yours are the 3 revenue bond issues. And so I've got kind of the broken out details on each one of these. And in the, the tax exempt world, you sell, roughly 25-year debt that matures in a certain principal amount each year at a certain coupon or interest rate. And so we've got kind of how the annual principal amounts on each of these series, along with the interest rate on each maturity. And the ones that are highlighted in red are the ones that are callable or refinanceable. And so typically in the tax exempt world, you have bonds are issued with a 10-year no-call provision. And so for the first 10 years, you cannot redeem or refund that debt, but anything after 10 years, you can refinance that if rates are such that they provide savings. And so that's what the red highlighted maturities are the callable portion of your debt. So that's kind of the starting point of our analysis is, what debt do you have out there? What are the interest rates on that debt? And so what Steve alluded to is, how you can get at that or refinance that debt early. It's called an advance refunding. And an advance refunding is a financing mechanism that allows an issuer to, take advantage of lower rates, today, even though those bonds might not be callable for several years in the future. And how that works is that you issue a series of refunding bonds, and the proceeds of those are used to purchase treasuries or government securities, and those treasuries are deposited into an escrow fund, and they sit there and they pay the debt service on the bonds that you're going to refund until that call date. And on that call date, the amount that's left in that escrow pays off those bonds. And so that's an advance refunding. That's how you can get at those before the 10-year call period. And so, for instance, on your 2008 bonds, those are callable in 2018, your 09s and 19, and your 2011s are actually callable in 2020. But so you can get at those today. You set up you issue bonds, you set up an escrow, the proceeds are deposited in that escrow, and then on the call date, they're used to pay off the bonds. I've got a little illustration there, but it doesn't extend the final maturity. The final maturity stays as is, but I've illustrated year 7, but that can be you can do an advance refunding as early as year 2. It's probably not going to be as economical as waiting, but I've just picked year 7 just to provide an example here. But somewhere before year 10, you have this ability to issue bonds and deposit those funds in an escrow to redeem them on the call date.
What is defeased?
Defeased, so when you issue refunding bonds with an advance refunding, those bonds that you're calling are still going to be out there, but they are defeased in terms of they're off your books. They are no longer counted as debt. It's not like you're issuing, adding on to your debt. They're defeased, but they're not going to be redeemed or refunded until that call date. So it's more of they're legally defeased, they're off your books, they're not a part of your debt. And so that's kind of somewhat of term of art there with defeased. Couple things affect the savings that are generated with an advance refunding. Number one, the interest rates that are on your outstanding bonds. Number two, the interest rates that are in the current market environment. How long those bonds go out, the amount, as well as, and this is an important one, the time remaining until that call date, whether that's 2, 3 years, however long it has until you can redeem those bonds. And then lastly, the investment rates that you can earn in an escrow. As I mentioned, the proceeds of the refunding bonds are put into an escrow, and they purchase government securities. And so how much you can earn in that escrow affects your savings level as well. Now, the decision of whether or not to advance refund the series of bonds, that is totally dependent on the issuer. They have different target levels of savings. They have different goals. So that, can't say, hey, everyone does a refunding when it hits this level of savings. It's unique to each issuer. And so there's a couple different ways to evaluate that and how issuers evaluate it. One is net present value savings, which is, it looks at all the cash flow savings that are generated over the remaining life of the deal, present values it back to today. The local government commission, which approves all bond issues in North Carolina, they require that you get at least 3% savings, and that 3% is generated by the amount of savings over the total amount of refunded bonds. That's how the percentage comes into play. But they have a minimum threshold of 3% savings. Other issuers, that's not to say you all can't have a higher percentage, that's their minimum. Cash flow savings, your annual cash flow savings, that's a big one because that, net present value savings is nice, but you want to see what it looks like on a year-to-year basis and how that affects your budget and rates and whatnot. Savings negative arbitrage, that's another term of art, but it's a comparison or a ratio. You look at the savings generated versus negative arbitrage is what you could earn in an escrow if rates are beneficial. And then lastly, they may look at a rate or budgetary impact, and that goes hand in hand a lot of times with the cash flow savings. But if I show you something that has a 10% savings but only $10,000 a year of cash flow savings, that may not mean a whole lot to you. So it's a variety of factors, and if you ultimately proceed with this, you all would set a minimum threshold that you'd want to achieve by going through this. You'd have a minimum threshold, and you can set it somewhere and still want higher, but the local government commission will look to you all to say, okay, I want to meet at least this goal if I refinance this debt. And the one nuance, or one of the nuances, I mentioned it's like refinancing your mortgage. One thing here, under tax law, tax-exempt bonds, you can only have one advance refunding. And so you want to, you get one shot at it, and so you want to get the most bang for your buck there. And so that's a difference, unlike a mortgage, you can refinance today, 6 months later, rates are lower, you can do it again. Here, you get one shot at an advance refunding, and so that's why it's, important to really take the time and consider, savings targets and things like that. There's a lot of numbers on here, but I'll point you to a few key ones. So you've got 3 series of bonds, your 08As, your 2009, and your 2011. The callable portion of those are roughly $70 million. And so if you could refinance those based on today's rates, the blue shaded columns tell you what that looked like on a series by series basis as well as in the aggregate. And so you'll see roughly on the 2008As, a refinancing generates about $623,000 of net present value savings, a little over 3%. And you can see on the annual cash flow savings, which are right below that, roughly $50,000 or so per year in cash flow savings. On the Series 2009, roughly $3.8 million of savings, which equates to around $250,000 of annual cash flow savings. And then on your 09s, about $350,000 or 4.5%, which is around $20,000 to $25,000 a year. And the reason for the differences in all the three, I'll point you to the top box, you'll see average coupon, or coupon's another word for interest rate. The average interest rate on these bonds that you're refunding, for the 08As, it's roughly 4.8%. The 09s, it's 5.9%, and then it's 5.6% on the 11s. And so that's why your 09s look the best, is because they have the highest interest rates on them. And that was just a function of the market environment when it was time to issue them back in 09. And so that's why that's generating the most savings there. It's got the highest interest rates. And if you want a number to say, okay, well, what's going to be my rate on my new bonds, the true interest cost, which is towards the bottom, that tells you what the rate would be on the new bonds. And so you are, to pick the 09s, for instance, you're trading, roughly 5.9 interest rate for 3.5% interest rate. And so that's what's generating all those savings, is just the current interest rate environment today. The negative arbitrage, which is mentioned down there, that is driven off of what you can earn in the escrow. And so under tax law, you're allowed to earn as much as your interest rate on the bonds. So to pick the 09s, you're allowed to earn 3.5% in your escrow. Well, based on where Treasury rates are today, you're only earning about 1.35%. And so that difference is called negative arbitrage. That's kind of what's left behind. Those are savings you can't get to because interest rates on the short end in the escrow are just not there. And so that's something that's taken into account, that the local government commission looks at, and others. And so that's another number we kind of put into the mix in terms of what to consider in these. And so lastly, I've got, the big question that comes up is, what should I do? Should I do these now? Should I wait? And so we run a sensitivity analysis to show you, what would happen if you waited? Would you get more savings if you waited? And so we've looked at each one of these series individually, and the first column, the June 15th, 2015, that's an estimated closing date on a refinancing under current rates. Those savings match what we just referenced on the previous page. And so what this chart does is it tells you, okay, if you waited a year or 2 years or 3 or more, what would my savings be if I waited? And so what we've done here is we've said, okay, assume interest rates stay exactly the same as they are today and a year went by. Well, what you'll see on each of these is that the savings goes up, and that's because you have a 1 year shorter escrow period. And so that's 1 year shorter. You've got to have that money sitting in an escrow that's not earning a great rate. And so if rates stay exactly the same, you're going to get more savings. But I think, if you look back at those interest rate projections, I think the general trend is interest rates are going up. And so the next data point is, okay, well, how much could rates go up and still get me the same level of savings? And that's the yellow highlighted version. And so think about it this way. If you waited roughly a year, rates could rise, it's 45 to 50 basis points, 0.5%, and you'd be in the same spot. So if rates rise by more than 0.5% over the next year, you would have been better off doing these today. If they rise by less, then you would have been better off by waiting. And so I take that a step further and go 2 years out, and then you're looking more, closer to 1% cushion. So if rates rise by more than 1% over the next 2 years, then you would have been better off doing them now. Conversely, if they rise by less, then you would have been better off waiting. And then the last column is if you wait all the way to the call date of each of those bonds, which is in 2018, 19, and 20 respectively. And so you can see, in a perfect world, rates are where they are today, and you wait all the way to the call date, you can see how much more savings are generated. In many cases, quadruple the savings, but that assumes no change in interest rates over the next 3 or 4 years. Again, it's anybody's guess what that does, but this just puts some numbers behind that and tells you how much rates could go up or down during that time. And that's a real brief overview. I know it's a lot of information, so I'll open it up to any questions.
Switch back to page 13, please. There you go. I just want to point out and make sure I'm reading this correctly. You have the columns there with the year-to-year savings on each of the bond series.
Yes. And
then the aggregate total, the total savings. If the projections held true that you've got on this, $6.465 million.
That's correct. Over the life of over the next 20 odd years or so, $6.5 million of savings. To give you some other intel here, and my coworker uses this analogy a lot, and I think Steve and Dave heard it as well. If you look at certain levels of savings on a percentage basis, you know, again, the local government commission's minimum threshold is 3%. So, you know, between 3 and 5% savings, my coworker uses a baseball analogy. That's like a single. That's a good, solid level of savings. Something in the, you know, 5, 6, 7%, that's more like a double. You know, 8, 9, 10%, that's a triple, and then double-digit savings, that's a home run. And so, you know, you've got a couple singles and a triple here. And so, you know, again, this changes on a daily basis. This changed a little bit from when we met a few weeks ago. It will continue to change. It takes roughly 90 days to get everything ready to sell the bonds. And so, you know, there's some bond documents that, you know, resolutions that have to come before you all. The local government commission has to approve it, and then you have to put together an offering document or prospectus for us to go out and sell the bonds. So and also get the bonds rated by the rating agency. So there's a lot of things that go into it. Rule of thumb, roughly 75 to 90 days to go out and sell those bonds. And so this changes around a lot. You know, just starting the process doesn't mean you have to actually go through with it. If you started and rates fall out or, you know, go higher, then you can pull it and wait for a better day. So there's nothing that says you have to go through with this just because you start the process. You're not, you don't have those bonds, or you're not committed to that until we actually sell them. And so that's, again, we monitor this on a daily or weekly basis and give you all updates.
When is Fed supposed to announce whether they're going to make any change? And I've noted the market tanked for the past several days because the jobs report was so good.
Right.
And they tanked because since the jobs report was so good, they're expecting the Feds to raise the interest rates.
Exactly. So, you know, the better, you know, and the investors, investing community, they parse every single word that the Fed releases, and so they're looking for just a change in a word here or there. But the general read is that, you know, with that very strong jobs number, which it's been very strong for the last several times, and so the employment rate or unemployment rate has gone down. And so with that, people are betting now, or, you know, they're predicting now that the Fed will raise rates starting in June. And again, that Fed funds rate is going to be on the short end of the yield curve, but that will drive, to a certain extent, that will drive other rates as well. And so the current read is June, but, you know, there may be something that comes out in the next month or two that makes them wait till September or some other time. Fed meets roughly every month. Sometimes, you know, goes 2 months in between, but current read is early summer.
I don't know about you guys, but I almost didn't forward your email when you sent it to me. You know, I get those emails every day. We can help you out. You know, let us take your debt, but yours sounded a little bit more professional than most of them I got. So I'm really glad I forwarded that to Steve and David to let them ask you to see whether you really truly were what you said you were.
Right.
You knew what you were talking about. I'd like to make a point for the general public. We've been in discussions with the county about possibly selling back a bit of our capacity to the county, and, you know, working different ways to do it because with our excess capacity with the treatment plant, and possibly with what the last conversations were, we're looking at maybe $5 to $6 million savings on our debt to the county. And Steve and David have been working with him on working possibly $6.4 million. So the council and the manager and the finance officers have worked every day to find ways to reduce the debt on our utility system, and it looks like maybe we might have a total of $10 million this year that we can reduce that debt off of your backs. Hopefully, just cross your fingers. And that debt, the county debt, is not listed on this. That's what we pay for our capacity at the treatment plant, and that's listed under operations. It's not listed under debt service.
Right.
Any council members have any questions?
I got one.
Please.
If we did this and we do not have the bonds, could this system then transfer to the county?
One of the reasons that the county did not take it over before was because they were in the middle of financing for the other treatment plant, and they didn't want to take on that amount of debt. I don't know what debt level we would have to get to for them to be willing to take it on.
I thought it was our bonds too that was holding us back.
If we refund, yep, if we refund these bonds this way, right now, our water and wastewater funds are pledged to these bonds, the revenue produced from those.
Correct.
The county was looking at taking over our system, and we were just going to do an agreement with the county that the revenue produced from Oak Island in water and wastewater would be used to pay the bonds, but the bond council wouldn't allow them to take over our debt and take the revenue to the county.
Right.
They would, and still pledge it from us.
Dave,
If
if
we
I could.
do this,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I don't see this any different. If the county did at some point down the road want to look at taking the system over, any different looking at this as they would the current bonds that we have. I mean, I don't see that being them.
Well, we could certainly, if I may, Madam Mayor,
Please.
we could certainly interface with the county and get their input before we pull the trigger on the closing.
Yeah, as Steve was saying, these are your bonds, you know, whether they're as they are currently or whether you refinance them. At least that's the assumption that they're issued under the town's name with your credit rating that's currently on those bonds. And so, yeah, maybe it's still the town's debt as it is now, and so it would, you know, I'd have to defer
It would be considered just a debt though, just like this is, I would think.
Oh, it's exactly the same. Instead of some 08, 09, 11s, you may just end up with a Series 2015, but it's still debt on your books there, and so that's.
And the county was going to charge our people the fees needed every month to pay our debt. They were not going to take our debt and make it countywide. We still were going to have to pay it.
One other point I'd like to make too is if we hadn't improved the credit rating that we've improved this to, this would probably be a lot more difficult to get done than what we're doing now. So just keeping our credit rating, it's been a huge help, I think, overall.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, your credit ratings drive the interest rates on the bonds, and so investors, the mutual funds, the insurance companies that are the predominant buyers of tax-exempt bonds, the first thing they look at is your credit rating. The lower you are on the rating spectrum, the higher interest rate they'll demand, and so that credit rating is a directly influence.
Yeah, when we issued this Series 2011 bonds, Standard & Poor's and Moody's had just down-ticked us just a bit. One of them put an A or an A minus with a guarded outlook.
Right.
And then last year, I believe, they upgraded our
Exactly.
bond rating, so that if we had issued those 2011s today, we'd probably get a lower interest rate because our bond rating is better.
Exactly. And
If
so
I could say one more thing, it had not been for this board doing the action, taking the action that they did back, as difficult as it was, it wouldn't be in the situation right now where we're talking with Mr. Cheatwood up here right now.
Yeah, we would have been, they've had to approve for the past 2 years, across the board, 11.75% rates and raises in all of the utility rates.
Right.
And we're facing that again for the 2016 year. So if we can do these kind of savings, possibly they can stop those increases.
And as a part of this, I mentioned this earlier, as a part of this refinancing process, you would go back to Moody's and Standard & Poor's to get the refunding bonds rated, and then that's when they kick the tires on the town system and say, okay, you know, they just reviewed you, as you mentioned, a year or two ago, and so they'll look at where you stand now, look at your current financials, and then, you know, projections going forward, so things like, okay, we can reduce our debt service here or other ways, but also they'll look at your rate structure, and, you know, you all have been committed to raising those rates when necessary, which is a positive on their end, and so they see that, but they'll kind of look to you all to say, okay, yep, this is how it's going to look going forward, or this is, you know, things we envision changing, that sort of thing.
We violated the bond covenants in 2010.
Right.
And that's one thing that's caused the issues, but, I mean, the council took the hit. I mean, everybody in town has had to take this hit on their wastewater rates, but we've met those bond covenants comfortably. The council hired a consultant to come in and let us know what we needed to do. We had to actually take $3.5 million out of one fund and let the wastewater fund borrow it for 10 years.
Right.
or we would have had to have raised the rates about 36%.
Yeah,
So it's been tough. It's been hard.
right.
I mean, it's been real hard for all of us.
Yeah, and that's where this, this can certainly help, and really the decision lies with your staff about, do I get this now? Do you hold out for more? That's that's the unknown is.
When are the feds gonna announce?
The latest guess is June.
June? Okay.
But
Don't expect them to announce any
not currently.
movements?
That
Okay.
can changes quickly, but that's the current read. I wouldn't expect them to do it beforehand.
Counselor Medlin?
If we pull the trigger on this next month, is there any upfront cost?
There are upfront costs, which are all baked into these numbers. These are the net numbers of any cost
They're
associated
built
with that.
into these numbers?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, you have your main cost are your legal fees, your bond counsel, your underwriting fees, which is is the sales commission to sell the bonds. We have an underwriter's counsel. So you have legal fees, underwriting fees, rating agencies to get your bonds rated, they charge a fee. Those are the main ones out there, and then some other fees that go into it. I've got plug figures for, estimates for all those in here. And I've also got things like bond insurance. You all had bond insurance on the previous series, and so I've incorporated that here as well. I've got an estimated fee. So the numbers you see here are net of estimated fees that are in there.
If the council pulled the trigger on this and we worked to get the information together for the LGC, would we use Raftellus again? He put all the numbers together for all these bond series. He's very knowledgeable about Oak Island's rate structure, that sort of thing. We used him when we used Deck and Associates to reset the rate structure.
That's a good question, and one we hadn't addressed yet, but typically, if you have a new money borrowing, you're adding to your debt, you have a rate consultant come in and project out the rates, and so the LGC requires that. With the refinancing, it's a little bit different because you're just saving money, it's just good. And so they don't require that. However, just initial thought, I would say it's probably still good, given some of the history, to come in and have him come in and, kick the tires and have some information in hand that we can relay to the local government commission and the rating agency. So typically refinancing not required to do that, but it may be something to consider in this case.
And I think David had worked with him last year. They've pretty much got our numbers close to actuals through last year's figures. All he'd have to do is just update for the 2015 estimates.
Yeah, given their knowledge and relatively frequent work, it's probably wouldn't be too bad for them to do that.
Would a council member like to make a motion that we request that Wells Fargo begin the process of possibly doing a refund package? What would you call it?
Bond refinancing.
A bond refunding
Bond refunding.
series?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Medlin makes that motion.
Right.
Do we have a second? Councilor Scott, I'm going to call him this time, Danny, even though you nodded your head. Councilor Scott seconded. Anybody else have any more questions?
That's funny.
All those in favor, please. All right, guys. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Continue on. I'm sure that and Tim, you'll have to come down and introduce yourself to Tim in April, so he can begin working with you. And I hope that everybody will get the word out to everybody in town, the results of some of the work this council and the manager and the finance officers have been doing for the past 2 years. We're finally beginning to see some fruition on what they have just pulled their hair out over on this sewer debt. We're making progress. Okay. Next is adjustment and approval of the agenda. Let's do that. We've been in session for an hour and 10 minutes. and we'll take a break before we do the general comments. Anybody have any adjustments to the agenda, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Please.
Can we remove number 5 from the consent agenda for discussion with our town manager, Steve Foster?
Okay, and just move it down to items removed from the consent agenda.
Ma'am.
Anyone else,
And
please?
then, under new business,
Uh-huh.
number 3, Mr. Kelly's not here tonight to
Okay.
discuss this with us.
We'll defer that to April,
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Mayor,
please.
under new business number 1, we also have a golf course committee, ad hoc committee report under committee reports, and I would like to combine those two items and just make, remove new business item 1. Will be handled under the golf course
Okay.
ad hoc committee report, since the council is able to take action
Okay.
after a committee report.
Anyone else, please? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I have a motion by Councilor Painter. Do I have a second? Councilor Kaiser. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. We'll take a short break right quick.
Mayor, is Tim still here somewhere?
I think
We will call the meeting back to order. Before we go on with the public comments, had a note from an Arbor Day member. For modest contributions, they send you 10 seedlings from a variety of trees. That's our Tree City USA Committee and the Beautification Club, I think, the Arbor Day members. You can call up to Town Hall and get the contact information for them to get yourself some seedlings and plant and get our canopies rebuilt here in the town of Oak Island. And also, before we go on, I need to make a big shout out to David Hatton, our finance officer, and to Linda Harris, our tax collector, and all the collections people downstairs. They are on a renewed effort to collect all these past due assessments and taxes and utility bills. Last month, they collected $56,000 in past due assessments and taxes. And this month, they collected $40,000 in assessments from people that had never even paid a penny on their assessments. Now, what that does, your tax rates, when the council sets your tax rates for the next fiscal year, they have to take into consideration how much they expect to collect. You have to take into consideration the collection rate. And surely their efforts are going to make our collection rate higher, which means that you don't have to pay those taxes that were uncollected. It helps the council not have to raise your taxes. The assessments, we have to take into account the assessment rate when we set your utility rates. So if the assessments are paid, that $40,000 helped a bunch. That's going to help in getting your utility rates when we get that prepaid assessments fund back to a healthy balance. So kudos to all of you, and thanks for making all those efforts. They'll be giving us reports pretty soon. They've been going mad trying to do all these collections and stuff. Good job. Okay, next we have public comments, and let me find my sign-up sheet. Here we go. You have 5 minutes to speak, please, and when you come to the podium, please state your name and address. First to speak is Helen Cashwell.
Good evening. Helen Cashwell, 3407 East Yacht Drive. In selection of the 12-member Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee in new business number 2, Council Weinkoff has already stated he wanted the committee to be comprised of 12 citizens that were not on any of the town boards in order to get good input from a diverse group. I'd like to read you something that was in the planning board meeting of February the 25th. It reads as follows. Mr. Jenkins made a motion to approve the Citizens Participation Plan as presented with the following amendments. Number one, the advisory committee, the final statement should read, the committee is composed of 12 members representing diverse interests, including the following members to be appointed by the town council. Vice Chairman Manis asked Mr. Crook to advise the council that the planning board didn't feel it was necessary to recommend the number of members on the CPAC because the land use plan would end the participation. Now then, we come down tonight, it says, how has this come down to consisting of representatives from council and planning board and citizens? So where in this document of agenda item number 2 from the planning board members did the item regarding the committee consisting of 12 members with representatives from the council and the planning board and the citizens did not come in conflict with Councilman Weinkauf's statement and then end with a motion made by Mr. Jenkins? I was in that meeting and I went to great lengths to try to preserve Councilman Weinkauf's statement that he wanted this from 12 members, not on any of the boards. And council and the planning board certainly aren't on boards. Now then, I'd ask you, do you really care at this point what the citizens are wanting? Or are we going to be railroaded again by an overt attempt by let certain Department of Development Services drive the growth in the manner of how our town proceeds? Please stay with your idea of keeping 12 non-board members of the citizens representing us. Thank you.
I'll let you clarify that when we discuss that issue, okay? Because I believe that's what that was intended, people appointed by council, not people
Right.
on council.
Right.
Okay.
They will be appointed by council. There'll be 12 members from the public.
Yeah.
That's not sitting
No
on
council
any-
members, no planning board members.
Yeah, 12
okay.
separate people.
Okay. And we'll make that more evident when we discuss that issue. Next is Betty Huff.
I'm Betty Huff. I live at 7916 East Yacht Drive. And tonight I'm here to say goodbye to Steve and to wish you well in your retirement. How long has it been that when it was that I drove Helen Cashwell up to Topsail Marina so that she could sail down the inland waterway with Steve, and when they landed at South Harbor, we were all there to welcome him. And all we ask of you, this city council, and you, Steve, was honest government, which I think we got, and to tell us an audit of this godforsaken sewer system that I am now paying $107 a month for. And maybe I heard something tonight, this is not in my list, maybe I heard something tonight that's going to help. Thank you. Anyhow, why did this sewer go from $60 million to $140 million? And I may be off $1 million or $2 million. And why do we have only 9 pumping stations rather than the 11 that was supposed to be built? And I asked you all, and you all did not tell us, and I've been saying this for 4 years. I'm still saying it. I'm still paying for 4,000 gallons of sewage, and I use less than 2,000 gallons of water. And I am ashamed that I must stand here again and say, why do you not tell us what happened? It still stinks. And maybe our new manager will do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Huff. And believe me, guys, believe me, if we could figure out where the original $42 million estimate in 2005, and if we could figure out 2004, if we could figure out, all I can tell you, and I will take the time in public comments to say this, there was never a budget set on this system. They never approved a total project ordinance budget. They approved the debt as it came in, and that's where the amounts came from. So it is what it is. That's what they paid for it, and that's all we can tell you is that as you saw in the presentation from Wells Fargo, the bond issues and the state revolving loan funds, all of those, they approved them as they came in. So we can't tell you that it was supposed to have been 42 million or 60 million. There was a paper written by Alan Reimer, the engineer with Black and Veatch, about our SWRF. It was written in 2007, and at that time, he estimated the total system was going to cost 98 million. So that's, everybody please quit honing in on that 42 million, the 60 million, and it ended up 130 million. And I've got the list of what that ended up. So this council has looked at every single penny that was paid out on this, and they have found the savings that they can find, and they're continuing to find savings that they can find. And trying to help you out on those rates. We have to pay them too. We understand. Okay, next is, you've written down Charles Erickson, but I almost didn't recognize it. Come on up here, Chuck. Years ago, I do dog rescue, and I specialize in golden retrievers. And there was a golden retriever that's going to be taken in by News River Golden Retriever Rescue. And she had some puppies. And I kept her puppies here and fostered them and got them adoptable. They got adopted out. And then about that same time, here comes this guy from 32nd Street, and he had adopted Mama. I tell you, you didn't have to go all the way to Raleigh to get her. I had her right down the street.
And we still have Alice.
Still have Alice.
And she went on a long trail. She was from North Georgia.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm Charles Erickson, commonly known as Chuck. I live at 170 Northeast 32nd Street in Oak Island, and I'm an employee of the town in the capacity of pro shop attendant at the Par 3 golf course, which is a subject I want to briefly address tonight. First, I would like to thank the advisory committee for the good work they have done, and particularly for coming into the pro shop, listening to us, exchanging ideas with us. I'm speaking not for the pro shop staff tonight because I'm not authorized to do that. I'm speaking for myself. And they've brought us some good ideas, some suggestions. Even at times, I've seen them working out on the course in a volunteer capacity. They care. They really do. And share one other thing with you. I receive a lot of telephone calls, especially in the off-season, from places like New Hampshire and Vermont and Maine and Ohio and Indiana and even Texas. I got a call from Texas the other day. People planning vacations, people who want to go to the beach, and they get on the Recreation Department website. We don't have a website of our own at the golf course, but it's on, there is a part on the golf course, on the town Recreation Department site. And they get on the site and they find us and they want to have some information because they're looking for a vacation spot that has a beach and something else affordable to do besides the beach. And a number of them have actually, we've been able to sell the idea, and they've come here and they introduced themselves. Well, I talked to you on the phone, you know, last April or whatever. We do not keep a log of those calls, but so this is just, you know, my experience, and I know some of the other pro shop staff have had the same experience, but it does bring tourists here, and they do spend money here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. And give Alice a hug for me. Next is Malcolm Morrison. Tim, you always have to watch out for Malcolm because he'll go that 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
I've never run over.
No.
Before I begin, before my clock starts, okay, is that on my...
Name and address, please.
Malcolm Morrison, 119 Southwest 21st.
Okay.
And I'm not accustomed to speaking as fast as I'm going to have to tonight to get through these comments. So bear with me, all right?
Kathleen, set that clock. Okay.
Without a beach renourishment, the town of Oak Island will cease to have a quality beach so essential to our tourism, which is one of the bases of our economy. Federal funding has evaporated. No one wants a Deepwater Horizon event to occur again, especially on North Carolina beaches. Despite our objections, the federal government may approve offshore oil and gas drilling. We need a strategy for a way ahead for our land use plan in the event that this happens. Whether you support oil drilling or not, we do need a hedge against that event happening, that they do put in offshore oil and gas drilling. Now, the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act, GOMEZA, Betty, is a revenue sharing act. This act requires that 37% of all new oil and gas development revenues from offshore oil drilling go to the 4 oil-producing states of the Gulf. The federal government keeps 62.5%, the rest of the balance for itself. It is estimated that in 2017, the 4 oil-producing states will receive $315 million, roughly $105 million each year to each state, assuming they have equal shares, equal production levels. The intent of this act, GOMEZA, was to compensate these states for the environmental impact of offshore drilling, to provide adequate resources to fund coastal restoration and conservation initiatives and hurricane protection projects. This act must be amended to include the coastal states of the Atlantic. We need to get that and get working on that with our legislature, state and federal. How much the Atlantic might produce. President Obama in his 2016 proposed budget seeks to circumvent GOMEZA. The president seeks to distribute all of the 4 Gulf states' oil and gas revenues intended for coastal environmental protection to the 50 states, even though the feds currently get that 62.5%. That's what I call hogging it up. We must oppose this as part of our hedging strategy. Steve Foster described our beach as a state park. Steve, that's a great idea. We need to get the state legislature's recognition. If it functions as a park, why not say it's a park and declare it as a municipal park? If it's declared a municipal park and used by the citizens of our county on a day-to-day basis without charge, then it has functioned as a county park, and we should say it is also a county, Brunswick County Park. Brunswick County provides their parks with funding for operations and maintenance. If it's used by a large number of in-state visitors as a park, and again it is, and without charge, then declare it a state park. The states fund their operations and maintenance. If it's used by a large number of out-of-state visitors as a park, and again it is, and used without charge, then say it's a national park. National parks have entrance fees and federal funding for operations and maintenance. All North Carolina beach towns essentially operate then a national park free of charge. You know where I'm going with this. We need to develop a strategy for increased county, state, and federal funding based for beach nourishment, renourishment, maintenance, and beach hurricane protection projects. Can you accept the idea that all North Carolina beaches are national parks? There may be some strings attached, but we are the primary or principal stewards of our public trust beach and waters. We are and should continue as its manager, but with county, state, and federal funding coming from GOMEZA. But we got to get that legislation changed so we can share in that. Am I under 5?
Is he under 5? 30 seconds. 30 seconds under. You got 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. There's a fundamental strategy out there being formed. I was talking with Carol Painter this morning about why we might go at it and use the Brunswick County Beach Consortium as a place to start forging these ideas together with the town of Oak Island, and we expand it out to the beach towns of the county. Mm-hmm. We get together and we get together and then go to the county and press our point there, and when we win there, we go on up to 20 coastal states, coastal counties of the state, and get them on board, and then we have the eastern seaboard of North Carolina going to Raleigh, and then from Raleigh, we go to the feds.
Thank you, sir. And Malcolm, the next Brunswick Beaches Consortium meeting is
April 16th, it's going to be at Ocean Isle Beach.
April 16th at Ocean Isle Beach. That's all that have signed up to speak. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak, please? Okay,
Madam
we'll go
Mayor?
on to the next part of the agenda.
Mayor Wallace, she's
Pardon?
saying something to you.
Oh, okay.
I got a phone call from Mark Worsbowski today, and he asked that the letter that he wrote to John Falk be included in the record, and I handed a copy out to everybody before the
Okay.
meeting. And he is in support of golf course improvements.
Okay, we got that in the record. I'll just, on the sign-up sheet, I'll just write John Falk's letter. Okay, we'll go into the regular meeting portion. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended, please.
Madam Mayor?
Please.
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
You have a second? Second by Counselor Weinkoff. I'll look to the right this time. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Items removed from the consent agenda. Counselor Weinkoff, approval of modification of the Eastern Channel project. You wanted to get a review on that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, I'd like for Steve to give a little presentation, what this is all about.
Right. Oh, sure.
Yep.
You want me to do it right now?
Go for it.
Oh, okay, great.
You're already retiring, aren't you?
I didn't know if you wanted to put it on under new business or.
No, it's items removed from the consent agenda is when it is
Tim,
done.
you may have to pinch hit here.
I've been waiting for this all day.
No, but you have.
We have to.
Here you go. Madam Clerk, you get a copy too. Okay. Let me go down this real quick so everybody's reading off or singing off the same sheet of music here. This is sort of a breakdown of where we're at. A couple things. On the left-hand column there, we have town revenues that we're using toward the Eastern Channel project. We currently have about $2.1 million currently available, somewhere in that, this Moss amount, that's a few dollars. Accommodations tax fund. This is not reflective of anything that we've paid back from the utility fund, which we're supposed to be paying back. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. The subtotal, of course, on the town revenues, we're just using 2.1 million. Division of Water Resources grant. The original grant was $1,772,682. Then we were additionally granted another $252,000 for a subtotal coming from the state of $2,024,200 or $682. As far as Brunswick County funding, here I got a copy, so I probably had a copy for you. Here you go. Is that what you want? Okay, good. All right. And then we have Brunswick County funding of $500,000 that's been approved. I did not include anything but what we're going to be getting this year. So just keep that in mind for a few minutes. So the total available revenues available at this point is $4,290,682. And of course, like I said previously, I took some of the funding out because that's not a current year thing. Over in the right-hand column is projected expenses. The original budget was $3,545,354. We had some contingency in that, $400,000 to $500,000, and some of the things taken out was out of that was the United States Army Corps of Engineer disposal charge of $141,000. Moffitt Nichols additional design fees was $274,925. The actual construction based on bid was $3 million. So everything after we paid that out, in the budget, the original budget, we have a remaining contingency of $128,644. There were additional costs involved with this that we hadn't anticipated that weren't included in the contingency, but other outstanding costs. We had original survey that we had to do of $8,150. Cultural resources, that was where we had to go out and make sure we didn't have any shipwrecks out in the channel. That was another $23,813. Sediment chemistry testing and geotech, make sure we weren't polluting the spoil area. We got that out of the way. And then the Moffitt Nichols had to do some work on the redesign of the disposal area for $40,918. Additionally, on top of that, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service had to get their little bit out of this, and this is to monitor the birds for $36,551. That's over a 3-year period for a total of $109,000, so that's not in this year's budget.
There's 4 species of birds that they're monitoring.
Yeah, 4 species of birds.
Piping plover, the red
Red
crocketted
knot, I forgot
woodpecker.
what the other 2 are, but we don't want to hurt these little guys, so. All right, so then we've got the Soil Sedimentation Express application fee. This is for the disposal area, the matting requirement, $36,500. So the total additional fees come to $177,306. So plus or minus the original budget was $48,662. Our new projected cost is $3,594,016. An existing buffer of right at $696,666. So if you add that, everything is available that we did not count because it's not in the budget year. After all this, we should have $1,030,666 is what we're looking at. Now, as far as the additional 50,000 cubic yards that we're looking at, we're going to be negotiating with the contractor. He has a contracted price of $10 a cubic yard, but since this is above and beyond that contract, and this is surplus money that he would be making on it, we're going to try to negotiate it down to $7 or $8 a cubic yard. The other consideration is that the dredge itself, just getting it here and getting it out of here, is over $1 million. So it would be foolish, considering we do have funding available, it'd be foolish not to go ahead and take care of the additional 50,000 cubic yards and let the dredge leave, and we're still stuck with that in the channel and not over on the beach. So my recommendation is that we negotiate with the contractor for the best price possible, and we may not be able to work out the whole 50,000 cubic yards, but any portion thereof that we're able to move from one end to the other. So
Are they going to have time?
that's the other issue. They're having to use a 16-inch dredge for the project as opposed to a 24-inch dredge. And what that means is that they're not able to move the volume they need to move as fast. But it does do better with a 16-inch dredge because it doesn't wash the sand away as bad it's a pretty powerful rig.
Yeah.
So it keeps the sand in one place at one time. I guess all told, it would make good monetary sense to go ahead and get as much of the 50,000 as we can, as much as we can afford, and that's what this proposal is for the board to consider.
Okay. Any questions from the board, please? If not, I guess we need a motion from the board to...
Madam Mayor?
Please.
I make a motion to modify the scope of the Eastern Channel project to include the additional 50,000 cubic yards, dependent upon that the work may be completed by April 30th. We have the funds.
And dependent upon the availability of funds, add that to your motion, please.
Well, it seems like he just expressed to us that the funds, okay.
That needs to be stated in the motion.
Also dependent upon the availability of funds.
Second.
Second by Councilor Medlin. Any further discussion, please? If not, all those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Okay. Next is committee appointments. We don't have any this month. We do have 3 committee reports. First is the Beach Ambassador Program. Yep.
Good evening, council, and Mr. Foster, best wishes to you in your future.
Thank you very much, Skip. Thank you for doing what you're doing, too.
I just thought I'd give a brief presentation to the council, letting you know what I did during the off-season and the preparations that we have for the second season of the program. Although ambassador patrolling was very limited during the off-season, as we thought it would be, I was able to make, on average, 2 runs per week along the beach in the Rover, depending on the weather and the tide schedule. I was surprised at the amount of wood that I pulled off of the beach during most of the runs. It was a combination of burnt firewood that was left on the beach and buried in the beach, large logs and tree trunks brought to the shore from the tides, and unfortunately, random staircase and decking materials from the damaged houses at the point. While a majority of that wood actually washed around the western part of the point, I still picked up wood as far east as 5th West. That's 3.5 miles away from those homes. So our southwesterly winds obviously carried that stuff all the way down 3.5 miles and then deposited back up on the beach. I worked closely with Public Works, who did a great job of responding to my pictures and messages and removing most of the debris. The last few weeks, thank goodness, I've seen a really diminished amount of wood. I was very concerned as we approached the tourist season that stuff would be in the water or on the beach. So I'm happy to say that before they arrive, it should be pretty well taken care of. I'm working with managers at both piers to help us address the cigarette butt problem that continues to be an issue with butts washing up on shore. They've agreed to install and place butt containers that have been donated to us by our contact at the Keep Brunswick County Beautiful organization, and we're hopeful of seeing a decrease in this type of litter during the next season. The 2015 season will officially begin with patrols starting on Saturday, May the 2nd. Unfortunately, there are 14 volunteers from our initial season who, for a variety of reasons, will not be returning. We're in the process of recruiting additional volunteers. We hope to get about 20. So far, we're on track. We've got 4. And we're scheduled to train them on April the 15th. Your notes may say the 14th. We've changed that to the 15th. If recruitment is successful, we should have about 40 trained ambassadors as we start the second season. Based on a review of the post-season survey feedback that we received, we will be making a few changes regarding patrol times, reporting, scheduling, etc. During the off-season, we added a 10th segment to the patrol, so now we've got 10 segments along the beach, and we modified a part of the west end that gets little activity. The goal this year is to assign ambassadors to a specific patrol segment in hopes of getting as much coverage on the beach as we can get. The patrol schedule in 2014 was fixed at Saturday through Monday, but as I reported to you later in the season, I believe it's important for residents and visitors to see ambassadors throughout the week as opposed to just the long weekends. We're a good resource of information for them, and it gives us an opportunity to continually educate and monitor the compliance of our targeted ordinances. So this year we have eliminated Monday patrols, but we've added Tuesday and Thursday. Foot patrols will take place Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and then we'll make random patrols in the Rover on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Patrol times will remain the same to fit the convenience of the ambassadors as well as safe observance of the tides. Patrol time will be flexible between noon and 8 p.m. Once again, we'll be placing signs on Oak Island Drive, at the beach strand signs, and in other strategic locations. These signs will remind our visitors and residents of targeted ordinances. New for 2015, of course, will be the no glass containers on the beach ordinance. It'll be interesting to see how this is received. I've already engaged a few people during some of my runs on the beach as they were sipping the cold ones from the bottles, and a lot of people were not aware that this had passed. They were visiting, and so they were glad to know that, and there was no complaints about that. I think it probably will go fine. So we're looking forward to another good season. We're anxious to see how much of what we did last year in educating people spills over to this year with regard to the compliance of our ordinances. So we continue to appreciate your support of this program, and we're looking forward to another good year. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for all the, thank you to all the beach ambassadors that worked so hard last year and the ones that are going to work this year. Next, we have a presentation by, about the Par 3 Golf Course Ad Hoc Committee. John Falk.
Madam Mayor, Council, I consider this a great honor to be able to report to you on our business plan approach to the golf course. During the committee time, we felt the course was drifting one side to the other, negativity, some positive, so we decided to come up with a plan for the town so it may be treated as a business now, not strictly as a liability of the town, but to try to make it so we can be an asset for the town. The business plan at this point is still a little rough. We do have business plans listed there. It's a draft yet, in draft form. We were changing things as late as this morning even, a few other items with wordage. We might have missed an apostrophe somewhere. Someone picked up on, and we tried to make as cleaned up as we could. I'm not going to read much on this. We just want to hit some of the highlights so we don't tie up as much time. Just have to move this down. We've come up with 7 phases, which will be broken down, and those I will read. Number 1, review the past performances of the golf course, analyze golf industry trends, set departmental goals to match those of the golf course's overall approach to improving, tie all goals to strategies that match the golf course's operations capabilities, take an operational approach to forecasting how the profit and loss statements will be forecasted, maintain an extensive marketing program that will provide maximum visibility, and continually review and modify the business plan. That is our basis. It gets expanded upon, and this is where we've been going back and forth. There's going to have to be a lot of numbers behind this. It's not complete. We have a committee that would be more than willing to work on this and complete this for the town. To shorten some of these, just to bring up some of the main points, we want to make an ongoing process to reach out to the players for their comments. Their comments are important to us. We want to make special efforts to review and address all negative comments about the facility, of course, and try to make them into positive comments. Item 2, analyze golf industry trends. What we're doing there is reaching out to, we can go to different organizations, reach out and see what golf course groups are playing now, what groups are playing the par 3s, by age, gender, beginners. Do we have players that love to play the 18-hole courses, the major courses, but like to play a par 3 course for practice? I mean, 65% on an 18-hole course, 65% of your shots are from 100 yards in. That's what we can give these people. It could be a great practice facility to draw in more players. We want to set departmental goals that match, that everyone works together. It matches our overall approach for improvement. We should have goals which increase measures by percentages and keep track of those percentages and rounds played by percentages. We could also take, I'm sorry, I did not go to that section here. Section 4. Check off-peak and peak hours. When's our off-peak hours that we can maybe reduce some prices, get some additional players to play. We could have more tournaments, leagues, social events, even maybe some goodwill events like Wounded Warriors. I would like to play a blind association. I did play in a tournament once with a blind association, and 45 of the players were blind, who had a sight person with them helping them golf. And that was one of the greatest outings I ever played with in my life. So we've been reaching out, trying to get people like that involved also. We need to do a marketing program, we believe, separate from the town program, where it could be interactive, very easy to work with. People in the pro shop can work with. People would be able to get access on the internet, find out who we are, what we're doing. We'd also use it for the reason of targeting our markets. What's our markets? Besides Oak Island, is it Southport, St. James, Leland, Charlotte, Wilmington? Is it the residents? Is it vacationers? So there's a lot, again, of things and items here we have to fill in to make this a complete plan. Feel the marketing plan should take on more personal approach. The appearance of golf course is its strength. I will read these. If the golf course looks old, an attitude will quickly develop amongst players and community that does not care. For an older golf course, marketing a new image will play a huge part of the future success. The marketing plan should trumpet the family atmosphere of the course. We have many families that come to this island with younger kids. We offer them that opportunity to play at the par 3 where they wouldn't be able to play at the bigger courses. They don't want the kids there. We can offer that to these families since everyone is vacationing for that purpose and enjoying their family time. Quick summary here, which I will read. The survival of the Oak Island Par 3 golf course at South Harbor will come down to the ownership by the town of Oak Island and the management thinking differently and doing everything differently. The golf course image as an icon asset to the town should be established. Any look, feel, or stigma related to the golf course's ownership by the town of Oak Island, and I apologize for something because these were removed and I don't know why they are on this. This was totally rewritten. It was not supposed to be on here. So if we could please strike that, I'd like to strike that.
What's he talking about?
We'll reread. Please refrain from that. The summary, the survival of the Oak Island Par 3 golf course at South Harbor rests upon successful stewardship by the town. In order to become self-sustaining, the course must improve operations and develop fresh marketing concepts. The golf course's image as an icon and asset to the town should be established. The golf course should appear to the residents of Oak Island as an extension of their home and not just an aging town facility. The town of Oak Island develops new attitudes along with upgrades as required. It can attract new players needed to maintain the golf course's operations. The golf course players should be made to feel they are number one of the golf course mission, and in the years ahead, every effort should be made to reach out to the individual players to learn more about their needs and wants. Golf course quality is essential to retaining players, which will in turn increase revenues. We also have to show you some drops in a bar chart. The accommodation taxes, which we received at this point for the last 4 years. 2011, we received $119,190 in accommodation tax. 2012, that dropped to $104. In 2013, it's dropped to $80,000. 2014, it's dropped to $70,000. So we are receiving less accommodation every year. Good side is, it's money the town has not spent. Bad side is we still have to make an improvement program to keep the course in playable condition. And I want to thank you all for hearing this. We do have Mr. Bach coming up, who is also on the committee. He will give our 2014-2015 final report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Bach, 108 Southeast 38th Street, and it's my privilege to give the committee's report Rather than delve into details, I'd like to share with you to underscore the key thinking and the concepts that we've been working with. And first and foremost, the committee fervently believes that the golf course is an asset to the community, to the residents, and certainly to the tourists. It's part of what makes us distinctive, the many different recreational and aesthetic opportunities we have. We also think that Par 3 golf is unique in that it is family-centered for all ages, all levels, seniors to adolescents. It's something that we should value. And if we value this asset, it certainly needs to be cultivated. And the fact of the matter is, as you saw in the numbers, we have a bit of a push-pull dynamic. The subsidy, which the course has been receiving, has been declining. That's a positive fiscal trend. But unfortunately, recently, our revenues have also declined because of the condition of the course. The Par 3 committee is persuaded that the course can be self-sustaining within 5 years if there is long-term planning, there is strategic reinvestment, and the creation of a new marketing plan. It is doable. The committee also notes that the continued full cooperation of all the players and elements is critical, from the rec staff, administration, public works, all the way up to the town manager. Without that, without everyone pulling in the same direction, the course cannot be regenerated as we would like it to be. And last, I would ask you to consider our plan, both the business plan and the committee report, and to authorize us to begin planning for the next 5 years and reinvesting strategically, smartly, and appropriately in the course so that we can generate new revenues and eventually reach self-sufficiency. I want to thank Council for your time, for your support. Thank John for his leadership in the committee, and Councilwoman Painter for her unique support in enduring all the meetings. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, please. As we are in, I understand that after committee reports, the council can take action.
Yes.
And the golf course committee was created as an ad hoc committee for 1 year. And they, I think they have demonstrated tonight that they have made a lot of progress, and they have a very good business plan, and I would like to see the committee continue, be able to continue. I'd like to give them that authorization and hopefully implement these parts of their business plan. One question that I have, because in our agenda, it is stated that it is asking for a 1-year extension, and were we talking about a 2-year or just a 1 year? Okay, that's what I remembered from the committee meetings, is that they were going to ask for an extension for 2 years. So with that, I would like to, well, first of all, I would like to thank John Falk for his leadership and as the committee chair, and also John Bach. He's one of the new members of the committee, but the whole committee has worked diligently, and I appreciate all of their efforts. So with that, any additional thoughts? Yes, yes.
Good job.
With that, I would like to make a motion to extend the term of the Par 3 Golf Course Ad Hoc Committee for 2 years, with a report to be made to council in February 2016 and 2017. An annual report, in other words. So have another committee report in February of 2016, and then again in February 2017.
Good. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Weinkoff. Any further discussion from council, please? If not, all those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Thank you once again. That you obviously have worked very hard on this. Yeah, good job. Okay, let's see, we have a committee report from the Emergency Services Advisory Board. Reese?
I guess I figured out where it was.
There's a bunch of golfers here tonight.
I was trying to figure that out.
Tell me I can't empty a room.
Wow.
We were heading to the boat ramp one morning and had to go through the golf course area to get to the boat ramp. Drizzly, cold, miserable morning. And I looked over and I said, would you look at them fools out here playing golf in this weather? We had a couple of items on our monthly meeting, Emergency Services Board. One of them we're still working on. That's the purchase of some replacement fire engines y'all are working on. Another item, though, that we discussed and voted unanimously to support was the idea of trying to get the lobby of the police department back open 7 days a week, at least partially during the day. Right now, there's one non-police officer employee in the department, and he's overwhelmed with his work already with record entering and such. And we have a good group of volunteers to man the front desk at the police department. But a lot of times volunteers just can't be there when they want to be there. They have other obligations. And that causes periods of time when our police department lobby has to be closed just for lack of somebody to be at the desk and answer the phone. I thought it'd be better for our community if we had a place, a public place, and a police station or a fire department usually is the place people go to when they have a problem. To have a place that the public could go to in case of an emergency or need help or information 7 days a week. As you come into this building, there's a nice big banner that says, "Public service is our job." Well, you pass the banner and then you shake the door, it's locked. It doesn't speak well. I don't think it would be that expensive to do. I want to tell you this too. This did not come from the police chief or any police department employee. This is something the committee came up with, just thinking of better service to the community. So it's something I think we ought to look at this particular budget time. That particular individual now I think can be done with a grade 16 employee opposed to a higher grade like a records clerk. So I think the cost is something we could probably work out, even if we have to work possibly with a part-time employee. But to have somebody there, especially on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, people coming off the beach, needing some help or information or what have you, a door that is open and somebody to talk to and to help them. I think it's important for a town our size to do that. So if you'll take that into consideration. We'll meet again concerning some fire department issues on capital replacement. We had a decision to support a plan, but that plan has changed since then, so I won't get into that at this time. I was a little disappointed on our house numbering program, oceanfront house numbering program, the response we got. We did the survey from inlet to the town limit at McGlamry Street, compiled a nice spreadsheet of all the information needed, dispersed that information to the management companies so they could contact the owners of the property. My company in particular, just about 100 of our property, no, 48 of our properties are oceanfront, and sent all of our owners information. I think I heard back from 5 that were interested in coming into compliance with the ordinance that's in place. I think we've got the crying wolf syndrome here. We've done this for years. We spend the first half of a council meeting making ordinances and the second half of the council meeting cutting staff to enforce we need to enforce ordinances. And I'm as guilty as anybody on that. If we're going to have ordinances, we need to enforce them. We got one coming up in April, the polycart ordinance, super ordinance. It's going to be great for the town as a whole, the looks of our town. But it's going to have to be enforced like any other ordinance to get any results from it. So we're going to do another survey of the non-compliant houses on the ocean front to see if their numbers are in compliance. We'll compile that. This time it goes directly to Code Enforcement Office, and the next thing the owners will hear is from code enforcement people. So I hate that's the way that program ended up. I wanted to see that a lot better shape than it's in. So that's all I got. Any questions?
Keep us posted on that out.
I just want to point out one thing too. On your house numbering thing, I hadn't really paid that much attention to it over the last little while. But since we've been talking about it, coming down every day from the west end, I can't believe the number of houses that don't have any numbers.
Yeah, on the front side or the back side.
Front or back side.
When we did the survey, we had a vehicle on the beach and a vehicle on the hard surface, and we'd get to a house and say, well, this one doesn't have numbers. Where are you? And the guy on the street side say, I don't know. They don't have any numbers on this side either. So we'd have to start counting houses to find out where we were.
But you're absolutely right. That's something that we need.
It's very important to be able to identify, especially on the ocean side, where a person might be. It's going to.
Mr. Crook, did you take that down?
I'll get them all tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. We're helping Josh and his group the best we can on that. And Steve, appreciate your help over the last couple of years.
You're
Hate
welcome.
to see you go, my man.
All right, thank
Had a good time.
you. All right, appreciate it.
As soon as they get that solved on the ocean front, we need to do it all over town. You try to find house numbers in this town. Okay, next is administrative reports. Mr. Foster, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have to be quick as I can on this tonight. As you know, we had a meeting this past week with real estate folks and real estate attorneys to talk about prepaid tap and impact fees. We didn't come to any kind of resolution. Rather, we're going to be meeting again within probably next week or two, as soon as we come to some type of definitive answer what to do about handling those. Some of the issues that came up on the town's part of why we shouldn't be collecting or prepaying these tap and impact fees, three reasons. One of those is that our finance officer says that these are liabilities that we're collecting, because we can't really count that as an asset until they actually deliver the service. The other thing is, where do we put these fees? That's another big problem as far as accounting. Also, I'm not sure that everybody understands that just because they pay $8,400 something impact fee, they don't understand that that's not going to be the end of it, because these things are adjusted every single year when y'all adopt a brand new budget. So we have some reasons or things that we need to resolve if we do want to do this. And I'm not sure about all the reasons that the real estate community is wanting to do it. I think it's an issue of wanting to have something there saying that they have paid it. I'm thinking at that point, Mayor, you might have a better.
It all came about mostly because of these parcels that had several lots on them, and they're separating out a lot. And the parent lot is the one that got credited with the original assessment, the $4,200 assessment. And they're going into these closings with people and having to disclose to them under the HUD statements that none of the assessment on the property they just bought was paid. They would have to be post-construction tap and impact fees. And that can range from $8,000 to $10,000. And we had one instance that the attorney almost required that the buyer pay that. And that's not a requirement during closing. So
That's a private term that's negotiated between the parties.
Exactly.
But I understand if you close on a lot and then realize you've got a $10,000 price tag that you weren't aware of. I mean, I don't know if that's the town's problem as much as it is the private buyer and seller's problems, but I understand the issue.
There was one more, I'm sorry.
And as Steve said, I'm very concerned that the ones that, and our former finance officer allowed a couple of them to do it because of different situations that close. But I really believe that they think if they pay that $8,142, that's it. And they may not apply for a building permit for a year and a half, 2 years. And by that time, the council's raised the tap fee, and they're going to be surprised by having to pay an additional amount.
Right.
In the interim, they've given the town their money. What do we do with it? Why do they want to give the town their
Which
money?
brings us to the last problem, is how do you track when they paid, who they paid, who paid it, and how many years back was it paid? And that's another.
What if they decide in 2 years, they decide not to give me my money back?
Now, we think we're gonna build that in our new software system where we could possibly do it, but anyway, that's something else to talk about. But we're gonna meet again on it, see what we can come up with. I'm gonna ask Chris to come up. He's gonna do a real quick report on his paramedic training and kind of let everybody know where he's at on that. Thank you, Chris.
And be sure to explain all those acronyms to Betty when you're trying to explain how we're going to get this paramedic certification.
Well, we have moved forward in that. DHHS, Department of Health and Human Services, has been to inspect us last Wednesday. And again, DHHS they're not interested in what medications we carry or how we respond or who we respond to. The only thing they're interested in is the narcotics, how we secure them, and how we track them. That's all that they're interested in. So, with that said, they came down, did an inspection. They saw all of our security that we have, all the forms that we need to keep, except for one form. He was good with everything, but told me what I needed to do to update that form, and I probably had it done and emailed to him before he was over the bridge.
Okay.
So, and he did say that he did not need to come back for that. So, but I haven't, he travels all over the state. He's not in the office every day or every week because they're all over the place. So I'm just waiting to hear back from him on that part. On the other end, all the medications that we had to order except for one is in. That's on a national back order. But all of our equipment is in, so we're getting closer, but I still have to wait for DHHS to get back, and then we have to go through the DEA process. So, but I'll keep you all informed. On another note, the paramedic class has begun last Monday. So it's Mondays and Wednesdays from 9 to 4 at Station 2, and so far, it's only been a week, but it's going well. So, and we'll keep you updated on that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We did get notification from the county on where we stand on our revaluation this year. Generally, it was a trend downward, not counting any new construction that we've had for this year. It came to about 5.3% reduction in property values in the town. Of course, this, like I say again, it doesn't count any kind of new construction that we've had. We checked to see, David checked to see how we compared to others. Holden Beach, for example, had a minus 3% as well. And we're not real sure about Bowling Spring Lakes, but they came up with a minus 20% revaluation. And I think did you check with Southport to see what theirs was? I think they said something like it was a slight reduction, but I can't remember how much it was. But I think we were a little bit surprised that was the outcome, but that's what we're looking at right now. Let's see, Eastern Channel, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. We've already spent a lot of time on this already, but I'm just really pleased with the way things are turning out down there. And I'd urge anybody here that hasn't been down to look at it to go down and look at it, because I think it's a good lesson in what we can do with our beaches, not what we can't do. Like I hear some people saying, well, we shouldn't do this, we can't do that. But you should go down and look at this beach and say that this is a bad thing, because I think it'd be real hard to stand there and say it's a bad thing. And we're real pleased with everything that's happened. We appreciate the residents' cooperation on it. Cottrell Contracting has been very good. They've been very cooperative in everything that they've done. And I want to especially thank Johnny Martin, our chief engineer, and Don York, who's our environmental consultant. Had it not been for them, this project wouldn't have taken place when it did, because, as they said, they're going to write a book on how to do a 24-month project in 6.5 months and survive, because it was rather tedious, to say the least. So thanks to all those folks. They put down around only 10% of the sand that's going to be put down. And I think even with that 10%, you can see a marked improvement in the way the whole beach looks down that way. So thanks to everybody for that. I just want to take a minute and thank everybody here, all the residents, this board. I mean, they've been super to work with, probably one of the best boards I've ever worked with anywhere in 30-something years, elected officials and public management. They've sacrificed their time, their effort. They've made some really tough decisions that they had to make that I know it was a gut-wrenching experience for them, particularly on this sewer system. But it's starting to pay off, and their hard work is really paying off as far as what we're seeing tonight and some of the future things that we're doing. The staff, I just don't know if everybody here knows what a good staff we do have. They put in countless hours above and beyond what they have to put in. Weekends, nights, on weekends when the sewer goes down, they're at 98-degree weather out there doing some rather unpleasant things that they don't get credit for. You don't see these folks out at 2 a.m. And I just want to thank all the staff for all they've done, because between the staff and this board, none of this would have ever been possible. And I want to thank every one of them for that. Now, I've sort of felt a need to introduce our new manager.
Please.
And Tim, would you like to step up the podium real quick? This is Mr. Tim Holland, and he is currently at Topsail Beach, and he's former manager of the year up there. And you've been involved in all types of civic activities, mostly Boy Scouts and youth activities, which is a real plus. He's had a variety of posts in many municipalities in North Carolina. He's been in Columbus. He's been in town of Topsail Beach. He worked with, is it Kinston? No, Wilson.
Wilson.
And he's had a lot of experience in a lot of different areas with municipalities. He's also a friend of mine, and I've known Tim. He took my place when I left Topsail Beach a number of years ago, and he's managed to stay there all this time, so that says something big about it, I guess, in that regard as well, too. So that's my pleasure to introduce Tim Holloman from the board selection as the new town manager. Thank you, Tim. You want to say anything?
Thank you, Steve.
Tim?
Thank you for the welcome. I've been down here today talking to department heads, and I didn't want to steal Steve's thunder on his last board meeting, but thank you for giving me a chance to speak. I look forward to meeting more of you on a one-on-one basis and working with the many committees you have to make life and tourism here and visitation even better for Oak Island. So continue the tradition. So I appreciate the opportunity, and like I said, I look forward to meeting each of you and bringing my family down. Thank you.
Good luck to you, Tim. I think that's it, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Eads, do you have a report, please?
Not so much a report, Madam Mayor, but I would like to say I've known Steve Foster for 5 years. He started working at North Topsail Beach, where I'm the town attorney over there, about 5 years ago. And he walked into a mess. The town was deeply divided over beach nourishment. And I would say they had, I don't know, around 8 managers inside of 3 years. It was a revolving door, and it was a mess. And as I said, the employees' morale, everybody was scared. But Steve came in there and he fixed that place. They did their first phase of beach nourishment right before he left. I think it started right before he left. And it would not have happened had he not built the consensus that he did and find the funding and just move it forward. And the employee morale went up exponentially. The only thing I didn't like about Steve at North Topsail Beach was that he would always pick on me about what was going on in Oak Island. So I said, well, Steve, why don't you come fix it? And that's what he did. And that's what he did. When he walked in over here, I think there was a lot of fear and panic going on. This board, as Steve did as well, had a uphill battle. I don't need to go over the financial situation, but it has improved steadily each meeting. It seems like there's better news, and Steve's been the leader of that, in my opinion. And this board has certainly rolled its sleeves up and done what it needed to do under his leadership and with Steve. He's had to make some tough personnel decisions along the way, and he did it. And I'm sure no one likes to tell someone they have to be let go, but he did what was best for this town, in my opinion. And I think that morale around here right now is as high as it's ever been here. So I've been practicing law, particularly in the municipal area, for 16 and a half years. And I can say this, and I'm glad this is being recorded, you will not find a finer town manager than Steve Foster, nor a finer man. I hope to see you socially.
Except for Tim Hallman.
I said finer, he could be asked that. I hope to see you in your retirement socially.
I hope so, too.
And I certainly wish you the best of luck, and it's been my pleasure to work
Thank
with
you.
you, Steve.
Me too. It has been a pleasure for me. Come down to the estate anytime.
Madam Mayor.
Okay, before we go into the old and new business, I don't think we have all that much. Let's take a quick break. It's cold.
Madam Mayor, could I make one more administrative comment when you open the meeting up?
Please, we'll call the meeting back to order. Mr. Foster.
Yes, ma'am. I'm neglectful. I have a couple personnel announcements I'd like to make. I would like to thank Kathleen Snyder over here for filling in for us for our clerk. Our clerk is out ill this evening, and he's filled in, has done a wonderful job down there at the end. Thank you, Kathleen.
Can I say something about that? Lisa contacted me today to make sure I helped Kathleen, as sick as she is, and I just want to point that out, because I said,
Yeah.
Lisa, don't worry about that, we'll handle the meeting, you get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's been helping me all day via text.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'd like to recognize Miss Sarah Nix as being here back with us part-time again, and we're sure glad to have her back. She's got a desk full of work waiting on her, and she's successfully had her baby, and we are just real happy for her, and thank you, Sarah, for coming in and helping out. We appreciate it.
Has she brought the baby up so everybody could, no, don't bring the baby right now, everybody's sick. You wait till summer. Okay, we will go into the old business portion of the report on the parking. Josh, in combination of the property and development services.
Simply, the last council meeting, you guys instructed us to do a few things with the properties of the development services and the Yopon Fire Department. Biggest encumbrance we had was the water well that was there under the water tower that we used for reused water. David Kelly was successful in getting that well decommissioned, and it actually now can be counted as fire apparatus. Can be used if we had to. Not that it's ideal to run it through a fire truck or anything, but we could use that well if we had to use it to fill fire trucks. All of the, there were 8 parcels, let me make sure. 8 parcels and 9 lots of land. They were combined administratively out at the county. They should show, I've checked after I did the instrument of combination, they still have got some GIS information that's not correct, where one of the parcels is still showing up. But my next trip, I'll go out and I'll fix that. Other than that, you guys asked us to come back with a parking plan. Mr. Edwards had commissioned with McHenry to do some parking diagrams and do some other stuff. He's got that stuff with him tonight, and it'd be better that he presents it to you.
There's 3 paper clipped together. I didn't number them.
So we got to figure it out.
Well, I'm going to start with the first page and move to the last page.
Before we get a big prayer.
While y'all passing it out, what I'm going to do is give you a little history on what was done when this fire department was first built. It was supposed to be in a 2-phase project. The first phase was to build a fire department, and then the second phase was to come back later on and renovate that development service building for the administrative purposes for the fire department and training facility. On this first page, you'll see what we had was 6 spaces in front of the fire station that was being constructed, and that is the footprint of the fire station. This was all proposed. And they were going to put 6 spaces there, but on the bottom left corner, you'll see I put a little flagpole and a sign. They took one of the spaces. In addition, the other parking spaces to facilitate the fire department was over there in the town right-of-way, and there were 9 of them with the handicap being over there, and then they were going to do a concrete walkway all the way over to the fire department. And that was actually supposed to be done in phase 1. But they ran short of time and other reasons. They didn't get it done, and we had to move handicap parking to the rear. Now, the rear parking doesn't show up on this because they weren't utilizing that as part of the parking plan, mainly because of that radius that was around that well, and they couldn't use it. Now, we flip over to page 2, the second page. This was the second phase of the plan. They were going to take and make it an entrance off of Trott Street where you would turn in front of the Development Service Building, and then they had 9 spaces there, and they were going to remove the other spaces that were on that left end of the fire department where you would circle through and turn back out. Then a one-way in, one-way out in front of the fire station. In addition, they were going to take out some of the parking on Trott Street, and then there would have been 6 spaces along Trott Street over there that would accommodate the parking. And in this scenario, I went ahead and drew in the parking in the rear, which that parking on the rear is on lot 28, which was not part of the combination that Josh put together, but that's where that parking is located, and that's where the handicap parking is. It's on that very last one next to the little electrical boxes. But that was the second phase of the plan, and that one's still viable. You know, that's still a good option to do. Now, where the last parking lots that get over to the fire department, there's a pretty good incline there, so it's going to be challenging to work through that. It's something that could be done. Now, on the last page, I did a scenario where we take down the building, the old Development Service Building, and did a parking layout based off of no building being there. And doing this, I didn't put any parking on lot 28, so it stays unencumbered. This layout, it circles in off of Trott. It's a right turn in. You go around the parking lot, and then you go out that back entrance on Trott Street as well. I stopped it back this far mainly because of the radius that we need to get around the building, and plus that incline that's there, with doing a minimal amount of impact to it. This layout gets you 27 spaces just off of where the old Development Service Building was, with 2 of them being the handicap parking facility, and you still get to keep the 5 spaces that was in front of the fire station, giving you a total of 32 spaces on that plan. And that's pretty much it.
Questions from council, please? Anybody?
Plan brings us in compliance with everything we need to.
We're in as close to compliance as we can physically be today. We would have to tear the building down to do the plan that Mr. Edwards is suggesting.
Being in compliance depends on how you want to count occupancy and how many parking spaces would be required. And the way we are set up down there right now, if you want to count, you know, the head-end parking that we have off of Trott Street, the parking in the rear that we have, which is really only 5 spaces in the rear because the handicap's back there, and then your other 5 spaces here, without doing anything, that gives you, how many spaces was that? 14 spaces plus the 5, 19 spaces of parking. And since this is being used as a warehouse storage facility for Matthew Ministry, that gives you a low parking requirement. It's probably only require 3 or 4. And then based off of the number of employees that are in this public facility over here, I don't think Chris would have any more in there, what, 6 at one time? Maybe.
There's 4 in there full-time.
4 full-time. And that's usually how you base the parking space on the public facilities, the number of employees that'll be in there at one time.
The warehouse only requires 1 employee per shift and then 1 for each additional employee.
So it can be considered compliant.
Compliant for purposes of compliant today.
Other than the rear parking being on lot 28.
We couldn't, David and I suggested we didn't add the old well building because that's where the SCADA system is for the sewer system. You don't want to encumber the land again with something else.
Any questions?
Can we give the council, just let them review these, and if they need to give you guys a call to ask questions, and since we just had this handed out tonight, and kind of...
I got it this morning.
Hey, I'm getting used to hearing all of you hack and cough, and one of you gave it to me.
It's not me, I have not been sick yet.
Yeah. John, did you want to? Oh, you're next, okay, you're next in line. Thanks for all the work on this. And if you don't mind, if you could send out some. Okay. There you go.
And Josh wanna know if everyone liked this new shirt.
Nice shirt.
Okay, John.
Good evening. At the request of council, we're talking about polycars again. And last meeting, you asked us to come back and modify the fees or penalties associated with the polycar ordinance, and we've done that. Tonight for your consideration, made two minor changes or amendments to the ordinance. One is we changed the fine from $50 per day per offense to $25 per occurrence. And secondly, I had a number of questions about what areas were affected. It wasn't very clear the way it was written in the ordinance, I didn't think. And so I just listed the street names. And so if you reside on or own property on those particular streets, then this particular ordinance applies to you. So those are the two modifications for your consideration tonight. And we have a postcard ready to be mailed out ASAP to fit the 1,500 homes that are impacted by this particular ordinance.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
I'll make a motion. Approve the amendments to Division 2, Residential Refuse, Section 24-61 and 24-62 is presented in our packet.
Have a motion by Councilor Methman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Scott. Further discussion by council, please. One question, have you managed to get a dumpster set up somewhere? You were talking about for those that can't put them out, they have to leave on a day that's, the one back here?
Available back here. That's
Okay.
correct.
What do you call that? That's behind the
That's a good question.
big metal building? I mean, how do we give people instructions on how to get to it?
Southeast 46th Street.
Southeast 46,
Yeah.
behind the tennis courts.
Right.
Yeah,
And we've
okay.
had discussions, and without action tonight necessarily, but there's been some discussion about the convenience of, or would we cite another container or dumpster closer to Middleton? That makes sense for people coming from the west end of the island. The difficulty, obviously, is finding the right place to do that. And we're in discussions now about looking at different areas to have proper buffers to reduce the impact on the neighborhood or wherever we site these. So, but I'm working on that, and hopefully we'll be able to identify a suitable location for another alternative disposal site for those that are leaving on Sundays.
Okay.
The one thing we should need to caution ourselves on is, and John and I both talked about it, and that's unauthorized dumping of C&D construction materials type things. And I think we're talking about maybe getting a camera, or putting a camera on these so that we can monitor those things, because that is, North Topsail most notably, this turned into a real headache. But
Yes.
yeah, but we're gonna probably get a camera or something, try that. See how it'll work. Okay.
No further discussion. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John, for the work on that. We will go into the new business section of the meeting. We've already taken care of new business item number 1. Number 2 is consideration of a committee charge for the ad hoc comprehensive plan committee. Councilor Weinkauf.
Yes, Madam Mayor. As we discussed earlier, there'll be a makeup of citizens across the town, mainland, business, and real estate, to be part of this new ordinance we're getting ready to embark on. So the committee met, the planning board met, came back with a charge for them to follow. And I'd like to make a motion that we approve it and move forward so we can get started on the UDO.
May I ask a question before you make your motion?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor.
You're suggesting a 12-member committee.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
And you want at least one from 211 Midway, Oakwood Glen, and South Harbor. So 9 members, you got Midway, and then Oakwood Glen, and then South Harbor, and you want one from the real estate industry.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Somebody from the business industry.
And somebody from business.
And I also like somebody from, it's not a Green Initiative Board anymore. It's
Environmental Committee.
Like a committee member or somebody rotating.
Can't have a committee member, you already said.
Well, I said in the beginning, I wanted that one committee to be part of it
Yeah.
because they
He did
do
say
so
he
much.
wanted that committee to be a big part of it because of the impact.
Yeah, so somebody, they can rotate members, as long as somebody on that committee.
Okay, that would be 6 members, with the Midway, Oakwood Glen, South Harbor Real Estate, a business person, and environmental committee. And then the other 6 would be just members of the general public.
West End,
West
Central
End.
End Island, East End Island.
And that would leave 3 positions. Just
4, 6.
Floating.
Yeah,
Just-
just floating.
general public.
General public. Yep, general public. That's fine.
I think one has like a 367. Is that number on what's going on?
And are we going to advertise, or how are we
How
going to
we
go
gonna do
about
it?
identifying these people?
I think we need to advertise and put it out there that's what we're looking for. And let them do an application like any committee member would.
Okay. So this would not be named committees by the council members. It would be just like the other committees?
Yep.
Yep.
And
Okay,
we
and-
choose from the group that comes in, who we put on it.
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
I didn't know if maybe we should have Mr. Holland, who's our consultant, come up and maybe come up with some ideas with you as well, as far as who you'd like to have on the makeup of the board. I mean, we're 4 members shy, based on what I'm coming up with. So you just want general
I've got 3 members
public?
shy.
Pardon me?
I got 3 members
You
shy.
got I've got 211 Midway, South Harbor, Oakwood Glen, Business, Real Estate, Environment, West End to East End.
And Central.
Central?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we say South Harbor, it could be preserved, anybody, same way they need to be part of it too.
The preserve?
Instead of saying South Harbor, then, would you like to just say the Long Beach Road Corridor?
Absolutely.
Okay. Josh renamed that one to the
That
Long Beach
covers
Road
everybody.
Corridor. Jeff, the only reason I'm asking all these questions, I remember the nightmare when they started the Business and Tourism Committee. It took them 6 months to decide on the members and the makeup of it. They got really confused. How long would the terms be? Would each of them be all of them be the same
They'll be
terms?
the same term till we finish this project.
Okay, so this would be a
About a year and a
CPAC
half.
ad hoc committee, okay.
Advertise them for the next meeting in April?
We can begin advertising immediately. With that, can you do in the advertisement, this list of the makeup of the committee that they prefer?
Yes.
That we discussed? Yep. And then also, can you put in the advertisement, applicants should not currently be members of any other town committees?
Except the environmental?
Except the environmental committee. Well, that's a specific one from
Right.
that committee.
Right.
And Mr. Hennett has already volunteered to sit down and do a piece on it, so we
Good.
can get it out to the public.
Okay.
And he's gonna sit down on a conference call with me and Mr. Holland.
Okay. And rather than advertise for the position on the environmental committee, why don't we request that the environmental committee assign one of their members to this ad hoc committee?
That's fine. And like I said, it can be rotating because somebody may not be able to make every meeting,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so Kathleen, that member could be any member of the environmental committee.
Should we have any number of alternates, like we would for Board of Adjustments?
This is an ad hoc committee, and
Yeah.
there's 12 of them, so surely they would be able to get a quorum at their meetings.
Absolutely.
And if they have a problem keeping a quorum, we can always review and look at the makeup of the committee. you want to make a motion that the clerk advertise for the positions of the CPAC ad hoc committee as we've just discussed with the makeup of the committee members? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Payne. Kathleen, is that a sufficient motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Take a vote, though.
Pardon? Yeah, we're about, does anybody have any further discussion on it, please? If not, all those in favor? And it is unanimous. Thanks, Jeff. I think that's going to be a good mix of everybody in town. Let's see, we deferred number 3. So number 4, consideration of adding an administrative support specialist position. I think we discussed this at the council retreat and the extreme need for this position so that our employees down there can be freed up to work in collections, and they're swamped with all the collections on the taxes and the assessments and the utility revenues and trying to collect past due amounts. They really are. I've watched them. They are just absolutely swamped.
Madam Mayor, can I ask the finance director back there to come up, if you don't mind?
Please.
Is that all right? Maybe make a few comments. Sarah, I don't know if you really want to make a comment, just let Dave handle it, or Sarah?
All right, thank you very much. I don't know what I can say at this point that Linda Harris didn't make to the council at the budget workshop. She's pretty adamant about getting someone on that front desk so she can release some of her people to collect money, and you can see that her efforts are paying off in the collection efforts. And we just hired a new collector, I think last week, and she is falling into place real well and seems to be fitting in. And I'm looking for good things from her. So again, this person at the front desk, and at this point I don't know the hours, if they would be from 8 till 4, 8:30 till 4:30. And I just have to speak with Linda and her staff to see when the most of the phone calls come in. Do they start at 8? Do they start at 8:30? Do they, pretty much let up at 4:15? So at this point, and then I had presented a salary number to you guys, and when Sarah got here this morning, she told me I was probably a little low on the salary, that I thought maybe we could get this person. So we're looking more, maybe 22,000, maybe possibly something.
The way that it was written in there, the administrative support specialist is a grade of 17, and a grade 17 is closer to the $27,000 range. So I suggest that maybe instead of an administrative support specialist, it's more of an office assistant, which is a little bit of a lower grade. And an office assistant is a grade 15, which is a hiring range lower, around a $26,000.
May I make a suggestion? With Mr. Foster, and you'll be working with him, and Mr. Holloman. David, if you don't mind, you work with Sarah and work with Linda, and in the April meeting, give us a good idea of what hours you would need this person, how many hours a week, and the suggested salary classification, so the council could give you approval of whatever the three of you and working with the manager decide is what is needed down there.
Right.
Was that 27,000? That include benefits and?
No, like the lowest classification that we currently have working for us is a grade 7 or a grade 13. So we can go somewhere as low as that. A grade 13 is a hiring range of $23,931. An office assistant is a grade 15, which is a hiring range of $26,384.
What is the title of the position in grade 13?
There's two different ones. There's a maintenance worker and a recreation assistant.
Oh, okay.
Could we not go ahead and approve this tonight and approve a maximum salary range and let you all work out the hours. You know when you need that person, we don't. I mean, I hate to see us put it off another month, because I'll be honest with you, I was down there one day, the day all the water meters got cut off. I went back to my truck and got a gun. I mean, they were some of the maddest people I've ever seen, and I thought, why would anybody even be in here for $20,000 a year? Blows my mind. But I just like to, I'm just gonna make a motion that we authorize the funding of this position with a maximum salary of $24,000. And we leave the hours and that kind of.
Well, by statute, you have to. I mean, you either create the position or you don't, but the town manager is in charge of hiring and firing.
Yep, yep.
But they have to create the position.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what we're doing, creating the position.
Creating the position.
Creating the position and putting a maximum salary cap on it. That's all we're doing.
And let
The
them,
other thing,
I'm agreeing with your
Not
motion.
listening.
I just want to make it clear so we don't set a precedent or start to set a precedent. I mean, that the hiring and firing, if the position exists, is under the purview by statute of the town manager.
I think your motion was intended to create the
Create
position
the
and then
position.
let them decide the hours, all that kind of good stuff.
It says, I move the council grant authority to allow funding for the front desk position.
So moved.
And
Do we
would
have a
this be
second?
effective as
Pardon?
soon as we can find someone? And
Yep.
The 24,000 is before benefits, correct?
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it, but I want to ask something.
All right,
too.
second by Council Kaiser.
Are you
Discussion.
looking at this being a 40-hour-a-week person, full-time, or?
Danny, at this time, I'm really not sure. If
Well-
some of Linda's group could, like I said, start at maybe, this person could leave at 3:30 or 4, and then one of Linda's group at the end of the day could answer the phones at that point and greet any people that come in the front door.
Well, I was just curious if it was going to be a full-time person because of that low salary and us not paying any subsidy on dependent health care. They're going to pay half their salary for dependent health care if they have kids.
Right, exactly.
well, there's a there might be a possibility, this might even be a part-time.
Well, that's why I was asking. I thought 24,000 awful low for a full-time person, especially if they got family
And I think it's awful foolish of us to make a motion to go ahead and approve something when we don't even have a financial report to tell us what kind of money we have right now. I mean, if we had that at hand so we could look at stuff and see what we got, we can make these decisions wisely, but we don't have that. And I'm not ready to approve a salary for somebody, and I don't know how much money I got. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just, we've been wanting this stuff in case we had decisions like this, and we don't have it.
Well, if I might add, a position like this, and I think whatever y'all decide is fine with me. I mean, we do need someone to kind of help with this. As far as I've explained before, Councilor Weinkoff, we are working on getting that, but we need to get it in a format that we are comfortable with, that you'll understand that the public, because once we put this down on paper and it's released to the public, it's not that we're trying to keep anything away from them, it's just the fact that you gotta get in a format where everybody understands, what
Well, I
we have.
understand that,
Yeah.
but that's like me going out and buying a brand-new car and not knowing what I got in my checkbook.
Well, I think Linda gave us a great review of our financial status as far as the collections and the utilities, assessments, and taxes during the council retreat when she suggested creating this position.
And we got a great review by you where they collected $56,000 last month, $40,000 so far this month without a person.
But they are running into situations of tax certifications, they're getting behind on all that kind of stuff. I know this month they had 400 cutoff orders, and they're running around in circles down there trying to do all of it.
Can I make a suggestion? If it pleases the board, why don't we wait till April? He'll have a financial paper that we can take a look at, and we can probably wait another 30 days. We waited this long. If that's okay. I mean, I'm just a suggestion.
Well, I thought it was, time is of the essence since we had the motion in our packet. And I thought Linda made it pretty plain to us in the retreat that she desperately needs this position. And I'm one, if, you know, I don't want, if we need a position filled, we need to fill it. We don't need to mickey around with it.
I just
Whatever-
understood from
Whatever the
her,
rest of the council wants to do is fine with me.
I
I mean,
just
that was
understood
just a
from her
suggestion.
presentation that she had worked with David and, there were sufficient funds, I mean, and we get this person in there, you probably get 3 times their salary in tax collections.
I don't think our finance director would have made this recommendation to us had he not known there was sufficient funds to take care of the salary.
Would you have,
Much
David?
confidence in him.
And we're only talking about a quarter of a year
Correct.
under this budget.
Right.
So basically, it would take about $6,000 a year to finish us out for this year.
This year.
Surely we got $6,000.
Yeah.
We
And then
may
you-
not have, we might have to sell a fire truck to get it.
That was a low stab.
Okay, any further discussion? All
Oh,
those.
oh, I'm sorry, one more thing.
but,
I was just wondering if we have to actually create another job description or for the salary level we're talking about. Do we need a new job description to fit that?
We currently have an office assistant job description on file.
But we don't have it at the $24,000 level.
We have,
We're not bound by that.
Yeah,
I mean, we need the position to exist,
And
but
then-
as far as the description and what you pay, I mean, that's negotiable.
Okay.
Why don't we do this? Why don't I withdraw my motion, since there's so much falter all over it? No?
no, I've got,
Okay.
yeah. Don't
Leave it
withdraw
like it
your
is
motion.
then. I just want everybody to be happy.
We're happy.
The person, the human resource officer and the town manager and the finance officer will get this job description to match this position you just created. I believe they'll do that immediately, if we don't already have a job description, correct? Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I want to say something else.
Please,
If I can.
please. You don't say very much.
I realize that they've made a good case for needing the position, but I remember before, in past budgets, years, we spoke up about department heads coming asking for stuff middle of the year. And it's no disrespect to you or Linda, she made a good case and you've made a good case, but we're this close to the new budget year. Now, if this was back in last October or August, I could say, you know, maybe we need it. But is it gonna kill us to wait till do this as part of the budget process? That's just where I'm looking at. We're 3 months from the new budget. Could we not wait and include this new position into the new budget year and fund it for the whole year then?
Can I say one thing at this point too, just for clarity? At this point, unless Tim comes out, I'm not gonna tie his hands on anything. Been reviewing our personnel for the coming year. I don't know, there's not any suggestion or any hint of any more positions at all, period. This is the only one, I think, that came up in our survey in the various department heads that we should need. But just so you'll know, there's not any more plans in the pike at this point, unless Tim comes up with something that he feels like needs to be done. But the department heads and what they submit, there's no more new positions other than just this one, so.
Well,
And I have watched those people down there. I've seen what they go through. I've gotten the emails from the people that, you know, when they're having to face these people and tell them, no, we can't turn your water back on because you owe us $300. And I've seen the people in the public raising mortal you-know-what because of our past due amounts. Some of them are getting beyond the statute of limitations. And they have said, why don't you get busy and collect that money? Well, with this new software being put in and all, the increase in the number of permanent residents, and we're getting building permits out the wazoo. So I just think this position would pay for itself triple. If we can free these people up to collect that $6 million that's on our books that we haven't collected yet.
And if that new person wouldn't start till July 1st, and we're scheduled to have another 11.75% increase in our water and sewer bills on that date, that would mean they would still be in training.
Yeah.
And having to field the calls. I think it's important to go ahead and get this person in place.
Get him or her trained up. Yeah. Any further discussion?
I'll just say this, you know, you've got a department head there that has done more, in my opinion, to collect back taxes and assessments that are owed the town than anybody since I've been here. And she's asked for some help, and we don't need to micromanage her. She's asked for some help, and we need to give her what she needs to do her job.
And I just said this position's will pay for itself immediately. Okay, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please, and raise your hands where I can see them, and I don't have to do this. All those opposed, please. Motion carries 3-2 with Councilor Scott and Weinkauf dissenting. Okay. Next, we need a motion to go into closed session, please.
Madam Mayor?
Please.
I move that we go into closed session to discuss specific personnel pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A6.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Medlin, all those in favor? And once again,
You got it. If you push it, it'll turn green.
but I won't to record. Here we go. Okay, we will call the meeting back to order. Council took no action during closed session. Mr. Cook, I believe you noted that we didn't take a vote on
There were 3 of us that noticed that, one of them your predecessor, and Mr. Holland himself.
Okay.
You opened a motion to approve the citizen participation plan and the rules and procedure. Jim seconded it. You never voted. Then you decided to make a motion to advertise second, and vote on that. So we have to close that first vote so that Lisa doesn't make you do it next meeting.
Okay.
She's gonna hear it, so we just need to make sure that you.
Do all the council members remember the motion?
She's got it pretty.
It was to approve the citizen participation plan and rules of procedure as recommended by the planning board. And it was seconded by Mr. Medlin.
So all you need is us all to say
Just
yes.
all of those in favor?
Do it.
And it is unanimous.
That's it.
Chair will entertain a motion
Thank
to
you for keeping
adjourn.
us straight, Paul.
By Councilor Kaiser, second.
But every minute of it.
By Councilor Scott. All those in favor?
This is
Raise your
board meeting
Jeff, raise
time,
your
I'll tell you
hand
that.
so we can, Jeff, raise your hand so we can adjourn.
All right, I'm getting the hell out of here.